My name is Ethan Reed, and I'm just your average, everyday delivery guy. Or at least I was, until I found myself standing in the lobby of the Zenith Tower, the most luxurious office building in the entire city. The AC was blasting so hard I was practically shivering, juggling a stack of file folders and a small, insured jewelry box worth over 30 grand that was hanging around my neck. This place has more rules than a prison, I muttered, shuffling toward the elevators for the regular employees. My eyes, however, kept drifting to the gleaming gold doors of the private elevator reserved for the CEO. Suddenly, a wave of expensive perfume hit me, followed by a loud smack. I'd walked right into someone, and the coffee in my hand went flying, splashing all over her ridiculously expensive-looking suit. "Ugh, my Gucci!" the woman shrieked, her own stack of documents scattering across the polished marble floor. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I dropped to my knees, frantically trying to gather the papers. The jewelry box around my neck swung forward, nearly braining her. She glared down at me, the fire in her eyes hot enough to turn me to ash. "Do you have any idea how important these are? Mr. Croft needs them in half an hour." It was only then that I really saw her face. Perfect makeup, features like they were carved from ivory. She was exactly the type you'd picture as the executive assistant to a CEO, making a six-figure salary, easy. Her name tag read Chloe Mitchell. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm so sorry. I'll help you clean this up. The coffee. I'll pay for the coffee." As I fumbled with the papers, my eyes landed on a photograph tucked between a bunch of spreadsheets. It was a headshot of a man, probably for an interview in the company newsletter. He had a piercing gaze, strong brows, and wore a tailored suit like a second skin. An alpha predator in his natural habitat. But as I stared at the photo, the blood in my veins turned to ice. That was me. No, that wasn't right. It was like I was staring at the long-lost twin I never knew I had. Except his dark hair was slicked back without a single strand out of place, while mine was a bird's nest. He was wearing a high-end custom suit. I was in a crumpled delivery uniform. His expression was cool and commanding, while mine currently screamed, "I'm so screwed. I'm going to get fired." "What are you staring at?" Chloe snatched the file from my hands. "Just pick them up." Who is this?" I couldn't help but point at the photo. She looked at me like I was the biggest idiot on the planet. "Are you serious? That's Julian Croft, the CEO of Zenith Group." Half an hour later, I found myself inexplicably drawn toward the private CEO elevator. Common sense was screaming at me to finish my deliveries, but a magnetic curiosity had taken hold. I had to see this other me with my own eyes. When the elevator doors chimed open, I held my breath. The man who stepped out looked even more like me than the photograph. Same height, same face, even a mole near the corner of his eye was in the exact same spot. He was looking down at his watch and almost collided with me as I stood there, frozen. We both looked up at the same time. Our eyes met. Julian Croft's eyes widened like he'd just seen a ghost. I'm guessing my expression wasn't much better. "You are." His voice was deep, laced with an authority that demanded an answer. "They." "Delivery," I stammered, swallowing hard. "Mr. Croft." He looked me up and down, his shock slowly morphing into a strange kind of excitement. "Come with me to my office," he said, then added, "I have an important document that needs to be sent." The CEO's office was bigger than my entire apartment, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the whole city. Julian Croft closed the door and suddenly broke into a grin. "This is interesting. Very interesting." "What's interesting?" I asked on high alert. "Do you know how much I've spent on plastic surgery?" he asked out of the blue. Just kidding." He handed me a glass of water. "I have a proposal for you. Ever wonder what it feels like to be a CEO? I nearly choked. "What did you say?" "We switch places. For 1 week." Julian's eyes were gleaming. "I've been studying consumer psychology in emerging markets. I need an authentic perspective from the ground level." I felt a flash of irritation. "What do you mean, ground level? You got a problem with delivery guys?" $100,000 for the week. "Deal." He cut me off. My mouth fell open. 100 grand was more than I made in 6 months. "Are you some kind of freak?" Julian laughed. "I'm not interested in people who look just like me. It's settled. My assistant team will get you ready." He pressed a button on his desk intercom. "Chloe, could you come in for a moment?" The door opened, and in walked the very woman I'd spilled coffee on. When she saw two Julian Crofts standing in the office, the tablet in her hand clattered to the floor. "I'm seeing things," she whispered. I was sitting in Julian Croft's genuine leather office chair, feeling like I was perched on a bed of nails. A team of 4 stylists had spent 2 hours transforming me. Now I was wearing a handmade Italian suit. My hair was so slick I could see my reflection in it, and even my fingernails had been cleaned and buffed. "Mr. Croft, the quarterly business analysis meeting starts in 10 minutes. You're presiding," Chloe announced, standing in front of the desk. She was looking at me with a complicated expression. "This is the briefing material." I took the thick stack of documents, my hands trembling. The cover read Zenith Group Q3 Business Analysis Report. I recognized the words, but strung together, they looked like a foreign language. Could you maybe give me the highlights?" I asked, forcing a calm I didn't feel. Chloe's eyebrows shot up toward her hairline. "Mr. Croft, what's wrong with you today? You usually have these numbers memorized." My heart was hammering like I'd just run a marathon. Damn it, Julian never said anything about a meeting. He just told me to sit in the office and sign a few papers. "I'm quizzing you," I said, trying to sound authoritative, "to see if you've done your homework." Chloe sighed and quickly pointed out a few key figures. I tried to cram them into my brain, but it was like trying to catch water in a net. Finally, an idea struck me. I pulled out my phone and discreetly snapped pictures of the important pages. 5 minutes later, I was standing outside the conference room, my legs feeling like overcooked spaghetti. Through the glass door, I could see 24 executives, all with the sharp, predatory look of corporate sharks. "Mr. Croft, are you going in?" Chloe prompted softly. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. Every single person in the room stood up in unison, their gazes hitting me like spotlights. Sit down," I squeaked, my voice an octave higher than usual. The head seat at the long table looked like an electric chair waiting just for me. I walked over mechanically and sat down, my nameplate, Julian Croft, CEO, staring back at me. "Let's begin the reports." I tried to mimic Julian's commanding tone, but ended up sounding like a bad stage actor. The CFO stood up and started rattling off a series of astronomical numbers. I pretended to listen intently, but my palms were sweating buckets. Chloe helpfully placed a glass of water in front of me, and I shot her a grateful look. "Mr. Croft, do you have any directives for the finance department regarding this report?" the CFO asked suddenly. All eyes turned to me. My mind was a complete blank. I glanced down at the photo on my phone and blurted out the first thing that came to mind. The menu this quarter looks great." The room fell so silent you could have heard a pin drop. "Menu." The CFO's face looked like he'd just swallowed a lemon. I realized my mistake and scrambled to recover. This financial report. It looks very appetizing." Under the table, Chloe kicked me. Hard. The pain nearly made me yelp, but it snapped me back to reality. "Sorry, just trying to lighten the mood." I wiped the sweat from my brow. What I meant was, revenue for Q3 is up 15%, which is excellent, but we need to tighten our belts on the cost control side. The CFO let out a breath of relief and continued his report. I snuck a glance at Chloe. She was glaring at me with a look that clearly said, "Have you completely lost your mind?" The next phase was reports from each department head. I learned my lesson. For the rest of the meeting, I just nodded or said continue and managed to avoid any more disasters. Until, based on our projections, the marketing department will need a $20 million budget increase for the next quarter, the head of marketing said, sliding a folder toward me. "We'll need your approval." $20 million. I almost shot out of my chair. I couldn't make a fraction of that in a year of delivering packages. Hold on," I stammered, pulling out my phone and opening the calculator app. "Let me just run the numbers on the ROI for that." A few stifled chuckles echoed through the room. I looked up and saw everyone, except for a VP named Mark Adler, try not to laugh. He was squinting at me, studying me like a lab rat. "Since when does Mr. Croft need a calculator?" the marketing director joked. "You're famous for your mental math." My hand froze in midair. Crap, I'd screwed up again. "Our CEO is full of surprises today," Mark Adler said slowly, his voice smooth as silk. "First a calculator. Now he's mistaking financial reports for menus. Did we have a little too much to drink last night?" A few pairs of eyes darted between Mark and me. The sweat on my forehead was now a full-on flood, and my shirt was sticking to my back. Mr. Adler, Chloe suddenly interjected. Mr. Croft isn't feeling well today. He was running a fever this morning. Perhaps we should speed things up? I shot her a look of pure gratitude. She just rolled her eyes, but discreetly slid a small piece of paper toward me. On it were a few key figures and talking points. Thanks to Chloe's cheat sheet, I somehow survived the rest of the meeting. The moment the last executive filed out of the room, I collapsed into my chair, feeling like I'd just finished a triathlon. Who are you, really? Chloe demanded, closing the door and crossing her arms. Julian would never make jokes in a meeting, and he sure as hell wouldn't forget basic company data. I opened my mouth, not sure how to explain, when my stomach let out a thunderous growl. Let's get you some lunch, Chloe said, her expression softening slightly. I'll have something sent in. Back in the office, I wandered around like a tourist, touching everything. This wasn't an office. It was a five-star hotel suite. There was a sitting area with what looked like priceless art, shelf full of leather-bound books, and even a minibar. My attention was caught by a glittering gold plant on the corner of the desk. Its leaves sparkled as if they were dusted with gold powder. What kind of plant is this? It's amazing. I leaned in for a sniff and caught a sweet metallic scent. On impulse, I plucked off one of the leaves and popped it in my mouth. The door swung open. Chloe stood there with a lunch tray, her eyes wide as saucers. Mr. Croft, what are you doing? This leaf. It's pretty good. I mumbled, chewing on the metallic-tasting object. Then it hit me. Wait, this isn't real gold, is it? It's a gold-plated decorative piece. It's not for eating. Chloe slammed the tray down and rushed over. Spit it out. Now. I fumbled for a napkin and accidentally knocked over the whole plant, sending gold foil leaves scattering across the floor. The two of us, squatting on the ground, picking up bits of gold, looked like a pair of thieves dividing their loot. You're not him, Chloe said suddenly, looking me straight in the eye. You look exactly alike, but Julian would never eat a decorative plant, and he would never say a financial report looks like a menu. I swallowed hard, my mind racing. Julian had told me that if anyone suspected my identity, I should use the code phrase golden leaves. Golden leaves represent good fortune. I ventured. Chloe blinked, then gave a reluctant nod. I see. Julian told me ahead of time. If he started acting strangely, I was to confirm his identity with that phrase. She at me suspiciously. So you really are him? The one and only. I forced a laugh, silently thanking Julian for being one step ahead. Lunch was steak with truffles, which I devoured like a starving man. Chloe watched me, looking like she wanted to say something. Finally, she spoke up. Mr. Croft, you have a 3 o'clock golf game with Mr. Thompson from Sterling Corp. Should I cancel? Golf? I didn't even know how many clubs were in a golf bag. Gah. Cancel it, I said, wiping my mouth. Tell him I'm not feeling well. And the 4 o'clock HR review meeting? Cancel that too. The 5 o'clock new product review? Cancel everything. I slammed my hand on the table, then quickly composed myself. I need a rest today. Yes, a day of rest. Chloe let out a long, suffering sigh. Very well. I'll reschedule everything. By the way, Mr. Adler just called. He asked for 10 minutes of your time to discuss the Southern Region expansion. Mark Adler? The guy who'd been staring at me with X-ray vision all morning? No way. I was not meeting him alone. Tell him, I have a headache. A really bad one. We'll talk tomorrow. Chloe's brow furrowed even deeper. Mr. Croft, this is highly unusual. Mr. Adler is your right-hand man. You always make time for him, no matter how busy you are. My stomach dropped. Crap, I was about to be exposed again. Just then, there was a knock on the door, and before I could respond, Mark Adler pushed his way in. Julian, sorry to disturb you, he said, smiling like a fox, but his eyes were cold as ice. I just have an urgent document that needs your signature. Chloe tactfully excused herself, giving me a look that said, You're on your own, buddy, before closing the door. Alone with Mark Adler. I felt like a rabbit cornered by Python. You're not looking so good today, he commented, sliding a document in front of me. This is the proposal for the warehouse expansion in the Southern Region. It needs your immediate approval. I pretended to scan the document, but the words were just a blur. Finally, I picked up a pen and found the signature line. Just as the nib was about to touch the paper, I froze. What did Julian Croft's signature look like? I had no idea. Is there a problem, Julian? Mark leaned in closer. Something wrong with the proposal? No. No. Thinking fast, I said, I was just thinking instead of building a new warehouse, maybe we should optimize our existing logistics. You know, with AI being so advanced these days. A flicker of surprise crossed Mark's face. You were pushing for this project to be fast-tracked just last week. Plans change, I said with a nervous laugh, closing the folder. Why don't you leave this with me? I'll look it over. Mark's expression turned dangerous. That doesn't sound like you, Julian. You never delay a decision, especially on a project we've all agreed upon. He lowered his voice. Unless there's a special reason you can't sign it. My palms started sweating again. Mark's gaze was so intense, I felt like he could see right through me, my pathetic disguise melting away under his scrutiny. At that critical moment, the office door burst open and Chloe hurried in. Sorry to interrupt, she said, her voice edged with urgency. Mr. Croft, you have an emergency call from your family. I was saved. I jumped to my feet. Really? I better take it. Mark, we'll talk later. Before Mark could respond, I rushed out of the office with Chloe. The moment we were in the hallway, I whispered, was there really a call? Of course not, she said, rolling her eyes. I saw you were about to be eaten alive by Mr. Adler, so I made something up. You're a lifesaver. I was so grateful I could have kissed her. Chloe gave me a long, searching look. Whatever game you're playing, don't mess it up. Mark Adler is not someone to be trifled with. She glanced at her watch. Are you sure you don't want to handle any more business today? Absolutely sure. I said decisively. I've decided to go undercover. Yes, see how the grunts are doing. Chloe sighed. As you wish. I'll clear your schedule. However, she pointed at my tie. Next time, you might want to cut the price tag off before you wear it. I looked down. Sure enough, the Armani tag was still hanging off the back of my tie, its golden letters mocking my ignorance. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Julian Croft, dressed in my delivery uniform, was awkwardly riding my electric scooter with a massive bouquet of roses strapped to the back. Based on the information I'd given him, he was on his way to Sarah Collins' apartment. 99 roses for Miss Sarah Collins. Julian confirmed the order and rang the doorbell. The door opened to reveal a girl in sweatpants and a t-shirt. She wasn't drop-dead gorgeous, but her eyes were bright and full of life. Miss Collins? Your flowers, Julian said mechanically, handing her the bouquet. Sarah took them, her face lighting up. Wow, what's the occasion? She fumbled for the card. There's no name. Julian recalled my instructions. The sender wanted it to be a surprise. He said to look in the middle of the roses. Curious, Sarah parted the flowers and found a small box nestled inside. She opened it to find a pair of delicate earrings. Aren't these the ones I saw in the window last week? She gasped, covering her mouth. Wait a second. Her expression shifted, and she looked at Julian with suspicion. You're not the usual delivery guy. Where's Ethan? Julian's heart skipped a beat. This girl recognized he wasn't me, even though they looked identical. Ethan is sick today, Julian improvised. I'm covering for him. Sarah's face fell. Oh, well, could you please tell him thank you for the flowers? But, she bit her lip. Next time, I'd rather he deliver them himself. For some reason, Julian felt a pang of guilt, as if he'd just ruined something special. Do you like Ethan? He asked, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. Sarah's face turned bright red. That's none of your business. She slammed the door in his face. Julian stood there for a moment, touching his own cheek. I had told him she was just a crush, but it seemed their relationship was far more complicated than that. He suddenly realized he hadn't just swapped identities with me. He had stepped into my life, and the feeling was unexpectedly interesting. Chapter 3. The Imposter CEO's Comeback. The next morning, I was pacing in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of the CEO's office like a caged animal. After yesterday's meeting fiasco, I had sworn I wouldn't leave the safety of this room for anything. Mr. Croft, you have a 9:30 meeting with Mr. Wallace from Summit Materials, Chloe said, walking in with a stack of files. They're the main supplier for our Zenith Cove project. Can we cancel? I asked, my voice pathetic. Chloe shook her head. Mr. Wallace flew in from Atlanta just to see you. He's been waiting for 2 weeks. She lowered her voice. and he's threatening to terminate the contract, claiming we're using substandard materials. My stomach twisted into a knot. Materials? Quality control? What does a delivery guy know about construction materials? Well, send him in, I said, gritting my teeth while secretly Googling construction basics on my phone. 5 minutes later, a red-faced, middle-aged man stormed into my office and slammed a cracked piece of marble on my desk. Mr. Croft, this batch of marble your construction site is using is completely unacceptable. Mr. Wallace's voice boomed like he was hawking vegetables at a farmer's market. It's been installed for less than a week, and it's already cracking. Summit has been in this business for 20 years, and we've never had a quality issue like this. I nervously touched the piece of marble. He was right. There was a clear fracture running across the surface. Outside the office door, a few executives were peeking in, obviously waiting for the fireworks. This is definitely a problem, I stammered. But can we resolve this in a different way? A different way? Mr. Wallace scoffed. According to the contract, not only do you have to compensate us for the damages, you have to issue a public apology. I've already got reporters on standby. Cold sweat trickled down my back. Crap. If this hit the news, Julian would kill me when he got back. Just then, I noticed something odd about the crack in the marble. I leaned in closer, sniffed it, and an idea sparked in my mind. Mr. Wallace, would you mind if I tasted this? Taste it, Mr. Wallace and the gawking executives outside exclaimed in unison. Before they could stop me, I scraped off a little bit of powder with my fingernail and put on my tongue. Ugh. It was bitter and chalky, with a chemical aftertaste. I knew it. I slapped my hand on the desk and stood up. This isn't natural marble. It's engineered stone. Look at how clean the break is. Natural stone doesn't fracture like that. And I licked my lips again. Natural marble doesn't have this chemical taste. The office and the hallway outside fell dead silent. Mr. Wallace's face went from red to white, then settled on a lovely shade of purple. Mr. Wallace, I pressed my advantage. Our contract specifies natural marble, doesn't it? You try to pass off a cheaper product, and now you're trying to blame us. Imagine what the media would do with that story. I left the threat hanging, and it worked like a charm. Mr. Wallace's bluster evaporated instantly. Mr. Croft, it was a misunderstanding. We might have shipped the wrong batch. And the compensation? The reporters? We'll cancel everything. We'll ship the correct product immediately. Mr. Wallace wiped the sweat from his brow. Please, Mr. Croft, let's just put this behind us. 10 minutes later, Mr. Wallace was bowing his way out of my office. The executives in the hallway were looking at me like I'd just performed a magic trick, whispering among themselves. Since when does the CEO know about building materials? He tasted it. How wild is that? Chloe brought me a glass of water. How did you know there was something wrong with that stone? I used to deliver packages near a bunch of construction supply yards. I picked up a few things listening to the old-timers talk. The words were out before I could stop them. I quickly backtracked. During some market research I was doing. Chloe gave me a long, knowing look but didn't press the issue. At 3 in the afternoon, after signing a few documents, I decided to sneak out early. I couldn't stand another minute of this high-stakes tightrope walk. I was going to go home and study the notes Julian had left for me. Stepping out of the building, I let out a huge sigh of relief. Being a CEO was way more exhausting than being a delivery guy. At least on my route, no one expected me to taste test marble. As I rounded a corner, I saw a group of women huddled around a white-haired old man, all chattering at once. The man was clutching a bank card, a dazed look on his face. This investment product has a 20% annual return, guaranteed. You can't lose, one of the women was saying, practically spitting with excitement. Today's the last day to buy in. My internal alarm bells started ringing. I'd seen this scam 100 times on my delivery route. It was a classic elder fraud scheme. Sir, don't listen to them. It's a scam. The women immediately turned on me. Who do you think you are? Mind your own business. We're a legitimate financial institution. Don't listen to him, sir. I pulled out my phone. Great. Then you won't mind if I call the police and have them verify your financial institution's license. I turned to the old man. Sir, did they tell you they were going to take you to the bank to withdraw your money? but really they want you to transfer it to a stranger. The old man nodded vigorously. Yes. They said it was a special retirement plan. Seeing their con was blown, the women muttered a few curses and scattered. I helped the old man call his daughter and warned him never to fall for high-yield investment scams. Thank you, young man. Thank you. The old man wouldn't let go of my hand. There aren't many kind-hearted young people like you around anymore. I scratched my head, embarrassed. It's nothing. My own grandfather got hit with a scam like this last year. As I was talking, a camera flash went off. I turned and saw a reporter type holding a professional camera aimed right at me. Mr. Croft, I can't believe I ran into you here, the reporter said excitedly. I'm Lee from Metro Daily. I just caught the whole thing on camera. You exposing that scam? Can I get a quick quote? I froze. Crap, I've been recognized. If this story went public, Julian would definitely see it. Well, I stammered, trying to refuse, but the old man jumped in. This is Mr. Croft. You have to write about him. If it wasn't for him, I would have lost my life savings. You media folks need to praise good people like this. The reporter's eyes lit up. Mr. Croft, Zenith Group is planning a new senior living project, isn't it? Is your heroic act today related to the company's focus on the elderly community? I was trapped. I had no choice but to mumble a few generic answers. The reporter left, fully satisfied, leaving me standing on the street corner, wanting to cry. I was in so much trouble now. That evening at 8, I was anxiously flipping through channels in Julian's luxurious penthouse apartment. I didn't understand a single thing on the financial news, but the act of changing channels made me feel slightly less panicked. Suddenly, my own face popped up on the screen. In our top story tonight, Zenith Group CEO Julian Croft was spotted on the street today, stopping a financial scam targeting the elderly. The anchorwoman reported in a crisp, professional voice, as a picture of me helping the old man appeared on screen. My phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello. I answered, my voice trembling. Marble and old men? Causing quite a stir for one day, aren't you? It was Julian's voice, tinged with amusement. My heart nearly stopped. You. Julian, that news story, it wasn't my fault. Relax, he cut me off. The PR department just told me the company's stock went up 2 points because of it. The board is thrilled. Really? I breathed a sigh of relief. That's great. However, Julian's tone shifted. That business with the building materials. How did you think to taste it? I used to know this old guy who worked at a supply yard. He told me real marble just tastes like dirt, but the fake stuff has a chemical taste. I trailed off, realizing I'd slipped up. All right, you can drop the act, Julian said, and I could hear a smile in his voice. Chloe told me you were me ages ago. What? I practically fell off the couch. She knew? Then why did she? Because she thinks you're more interesting than I am, Julian said, a note of resignation in his voice. Anyway, keep playing your part. Oh, and Sarah asked about you today. Sarah? What did she say? My interest was immediately piqued. She said your taste in flowers is tacky, and you should have just asked her to dinner. Julian paused. I've already made a reservation for you two for tomorrow night, in your name. Wait, you can't just. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, a mix of anger and excitement churning in my gut. On one hand, Sarah had finally agreed to a date with me. On the other, the guy who'd asked her wasn't me. It was that damn CEO. The next afternoon, Chloe knocked on my office door. Mr. Croft, what would you like for lunch? Whatever. Actually, no, never mind, I said, standing up. I want to take you to lunch. Chloe raised an eyebrow. Why? To thank you for your help these past couple of days, I said sincerely. The marble thing, the old man. If you hadn't covered for me. Chloe's expression softened. So you do know how to be grateful, she muttered under her breath, then said, more formally, all right, but I should warn you, your behavior is becoming less and less like Mr. Croft's. Who is it like, then? Like a normal person, she said with a slight smile. We went to a small diner near the office, my choice because I couldn't decipher the menus at the fancy restaurants Julian frequented. Chloe seemed perfectly happy with the down-to-earth option. So, she said, propping her chin on her hand after we'd ordered, what's the deal with you and Julian? Twins? A plastic surgery body double? A clone? I was taking a sip of water and nearly sprayed it across the table. You're overthinking this. It's just a coincidence. A coincidence? She scoffed. You can't even forge his signature. You look like you're listening to a foreign language in meetings, and you wandered around his office like a kid in a candy store. I was speechless. Chloe was far more perceptive than I'd given her credit for. Listen, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. I don't know what game Julian is playing, but I'm not going to blow your cover. On one condition. What's that? Don't do anything to hurt this company. Her eyes were deadly serious. A lot of people depend on Zenith for their livelihoods. A warmth spread through my chest. I swear. In fact, I kind of like it here. It's stressful as hell, but everyone is so professional. Chloe's expression relaxed. You know, that's more human than anything Julian has said in the entire past year. We shared a smile. The atmosphere between us is surprisingly comfortable. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text message. Delivery lockers full. I have you Miss Sarah's package. If you want it, meet me at Lakeside Park, 7 p.m. tonight. Gee. I stared at the phone, half annoyed, half amused. The guy was using Sarah's package to blackmail me. What is it? Chloe asked. Nothing, I said, putting my phone away. Just a certain CO throwing a tantrum. Chloe nodded knowingly. He's been like that since he was a kid. He always gets what he wants. She paused. But this idea to swap places with you? It's the most interesting thing he's done since I've known him. Her words left me pondering. Why would the high and mighty Julian Croft want to switch lives with a delivery guy? Was it really as simple as studying emerging markets? At 7 o'clock, I arrived at Lakeside Park. I spotted Julian on a bench from a distance, a delivery box at his feet. You're here, he said without looking up. Seat. I sat down, immediately asking, where's Sarah's package? He pointed to the box. Let's talk first. I hear you took Chloe to lunch today. How did you? I stopped, realization dawning. She told you. Julian nodded. She's the person I trust most. He turned to face me. You know, Chloe has worked for me for 5 years. I've never once taken her to lunch. I didn't know what to say. This man, standing at the top of the food chain, sounded almost lonely. Why did you switch with me? I asked directly. Is it really just for market research? Julian was quiet for a moment. If I told you I was tired of being Julian Croft, would you believe me? I shook my head. No, being a CEO is awesome. You can have whatever you want. Yeah, he repeated softly. Whatever I want. Except for real feelings and real choices. He stood up. Forget it. You wouldn't understand. Here, Sarah's package. I took the box. About the date tomorrow night. Don't worry. I'm not going in your place. Julian gave a rare, genuine smile. But word of advice, stop at the roses. She prefers lilies. As I watched him walk away, I suddenly realized that this absurd identity swap might be more profound for both of us than I ever could have imagined. I stood in front of the mirror, practicing Julian Croft's signature for the 100th time. It had been 3 days, and my attempt still looked like something a patient with Parkinson's would draw. There was a major contract to sign today, and Chloe had warned me that if I botched it again, the legal department would start asking questions. My phone buzzed. A text from Chloe. Emergency. People from Apex Materials are making a scene in the lobby, claiming we owe them money. They brought reporters. My hand jerked, sending a long black line across the paper. Apex Materials? Weren't they the ones I'd exposed for fraud just a few days ago? I rushed out of my office and could hear shouting from the lobby below. I took the elevator down to find 6 or 7 men in Apex uniforms surrounding the front desk. The man in charge was live streaming on his phone. Look at this, people. Zenith Group, bullying the little guy, refusing to pay their suppliers. He waved a stack of papers. They've owed us $3 million for 6 months. We're not leaving until we get an answer. A couple of security guards were trying to hold them back, but they were clearly overwhelmed. A crowd of employees had gathered, many of them recording on their phones. Crap, if this went viral. I took a deep breath and walked over. What seems to be the problem? The leader recognized me instantly. Mr. Croft, finally decided to show your face. He turned back to his phone. Folks, this is the CEO of Zenith, Julian Croft. Let's see what he has to say for himself. The camera swung toward me, and a fresh layer of cold sweat broke out on my back. $3 million? Unpaid bills? I didn't know anything about this. Can we discuss this in a conference room? I said, trying to sound calm. Shouting in the lobby isn't going to solve anything. Forget it, the Apex guy shot back. We've tried the conference room routine before. and you just stalled. We're settling this right here, right now, in front of everyone." The crowd started murmuring. I could feel my legs starting to go weak. All I could think was, "Julian, you really screwed me over." Just then, Chloe appeared at my side and whispered, "Mr. Croft, your phone is ringing." I fumbled for my phone, a bit confused. The screen showed an unknown number. I answered it. It was Julian. "Don't talk. Just listen to me. First, get security to clear the crowd, especially the ones filming." "Security," I repeated his command. "Please clear the area. We can't disrupt business for the other tenants." The guards went into action, and the crowd reluctantly began to disperse. The Apex crew tried to protest, but I followed Julian's next instruction. "Gentlemen from Apex, since you brought the media, I assume you genuinely want to resolve this. How about this? You send 2 representatives and your reporter, and we'll review the accounts right now on the spot." The proposal was so reasonable that the leader was momentarily speechless. He had no choice but to agree. I had Chloe lead them to a conference room, then use the excuse of grabbing some files to duck into the men's room. The moment I closed the stall door, a familiar voice came from the next stall over. "Get down." I instinctively dropped to a crouch, and a hand slid a Bluetooth earpiece under the divider. I put it in, and Julian's voice was suddenly crystal clear in my ear. "Listen, Apex is one of our suppliers, but that payment is in dispute. Their last shipment was substandard, so according to the contract, we withheld a 30% quality assurance fee. You could have told me that earlier." I hissed. I nearly peed my pants out there. A faint chuckle came through the earpiece. "You know now, don't you? Get back to the conference room. I'll walk you through this." Wait, a thought occurred to me. How do you know all this? Aren't you out delivering packages? Chloe sent me a message. Julian paused. "She's my eyes and ears on the inside, to make sure you don't completely bankrupt the company." My jaw dropped. For the past 3 days, I'd felt like a bug under Chloe's microscope. No wonder she was always watching me with that all-knowing stare. Back in the conference room, the Apex representatives and a reporter were waiting, ready for battle. I took my seat at the head of the table, the earpiece feeling like a lifeline. "Ask them for the delivery receipts and acceptance forms," Julian instructed. I did as I was told. The Apex guys produced a stack of papers, claiming every shipment had been approved. But our CFO quickly pulled up our records, which showed that 3 of their shipments had been flagged for quality issues. "As you can see," I said, pointing at the screen, "this batch of marble tiles from July 15th had an excessive water absorption rate. This shipment from August 2nd had dimensional errors beyond the contract's tolerance." The Apex reps' faces changed. Those were minor issues. They didn't affect the final use. That's no reason to withhold 30% of our payment. I was about to argue, but Julian's voice came through the earpiece. "Ask them what they want." "So, what's your proposed solution?" I asked carefully. The Apex guys exchanged a look. Their leader spoke up, his bravado returning. "Either you pay the full amount, or we'll see you in court. And we'll make sure every news outlet in the city knows about this." Julian's usual style would have been to crush them with contract law, but the instruction I received next surprised me. "Tell them we understand their difficulties and propose a compromise." Huh, just do it. I clear my throat. "Gentlemen, we understand you're facing cash flow challenges. How about this? We pay the 70% that isn't in dispute immediately. Of the remaining 30%, we will pay half as a gesture of goodwill. The other half will be withheld as per the contract. How's that sound?" The room fell silent. The Apex guys stared at me. The CFO's mouth was hanging open, and the reporter had stopped writing. "Mr. Croft," the CFO whispered, "according to the contract, we don't have to pay that 15% at all." I held up a hand. Business is about long-term partnerships. Apex has been a reliable supplier in the past. This was likely an oversight due to a rushed schedule. This was what Julian had told me to say, though I doubted he would ever think this way himself. The Apex representatives looked at each other, their aggression visibly deflating. Their leader even looked a little sheepish. "Mr. Croft, to be honest, we were in the wrong. That shipment was a bit of a rush job." In the end, we reached an agreement and shook hands. The reporter documented the entire, unexpectedly peaceful negotiation. As he was leaving, he remarked, "Mr. Croft, you have a very unique way of handling disputes. After everyone had left, the CFO couldn't help but ask, Mr. Croft, why did we compromise? We were completely in the right. I was struggling for an answer when Julian's voice came through the earpiece. Tell him their workers need to get paid before the holidays. If we give Apex away to save face, they'll give us a better price next year. I repeated his words like a parrot. The CFO nodded thoughtfully. Once the room was empty, I rushed back to the men's room and hissed into the earpiece. You knew this was going to happen today, didn't you? Why didn't you warn me? Only found out this morning, Julian said, a hint of laughter in his voice. Besides, I wanted to see how you'd handle it. I almost had a heart attack. I seethed. What if I'd screwed it up? But I was here, wasn't I? He paused. Actually, you did pretty well. I might not have thought of offering that 15% compromise. I was stunned. It was the first time Julian Croft had ever complimented me. By the way, he continued, Mark Adler was in the back of the conference room, filming. What? I almost jumped out of my skin. Filming what? You, frantically looking through documents. You, fiddling with your earpiece. Julian's voice turned serious. He's gathering evidence that you're not me. My stomach plummeted. What do we do? Don't panic. He won't make a move yet. The next board meeting is in 3 days. He'll probably try something then. I rubbed my temples. My head was pounding. 3 days. I had 3 days until my cover was blown. When I came out of the restroom, I ran right into Chloe. Her eyes flicked to the earpiece, still in my ear. She raised an eyebrow. Mr. Croft, listening to some music to relax. I quickly yanked it out. Yeah, Beethoven. Helps with the stress. Is that so? She said, her tone full of meaning. I thought you might have been on a call. She handed me a document. The meeting minutes. They need your signature. I opened the folder and saw my own signature scrawled on a previous page, looking like a drunken worm. Ah, this. My toes curled with embarrassment. My hand was shaking a little. Chloe suddenly smiled. You know, Julian's hand never shakes when he signs his name. His signature is always as perfect as a computer font. She took a step closer and lowered her voice. But I think a little shakiness now and then isn't such a bad thing. She turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, my heart racing. What did she mean by that? Was she encouraging me to keep up the charade? Or was it something else? That night, back in Julian's penthouse, I collapsed on the couch and called him. What are we going to do about Mark? In 3 days, the board is going to crucify me. Calm down. Julian's voice was surprisingly steady. I'm working on something. For the next few days, the more you act like you're not me, the better. Mark wants to prove you're not me. So let's let him. His voice held a cunning edge. On the day of the board meeting, I'll have a surprise for you. I was about to ask for details when I heard a commotion in the background, followed by Julian's hushed voice. Gotta go, a customer's here to ship a package. After hanging up, I walked into Julian's closet and stared at the rows of expensive suits. For the past few days, I felt like an actor in a costume, playing a role that didn't belong to me. But strangely, I was starting to understand him. The amount of pressure and plotting he must deal with every day. No wonder he always had a scowl on his face. The next morning, I deliberately wore a wrinkled shirt to the office and put on a pair of non-prescription glasses. Julian never wore glasses. The receptionist did a double take when she saw me. Good morning, Mr. Croft. New look. Yep, just shaking things up, I said with a grin. In the elevator, I ran into Mark Adler. He looked me up and down, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. Julian, you're looking different today. Morning, Mark, I said loudly, clapping him on the shoulder, something Julian would never do. Sleep well. Mark looked like he'd swallowed a bug. Fine. And you? Big plans for the day? You bet. I gave him a mysterious wink. I'm going to go check in on the rank and file. As I stepped out of the elevator, I heard Mark mutter under his breath, check in on the employees? Julian Croft? He's lost his mind. For the rest of the day, following Julian's instructions, I did everything a normal Julian wouldn't do. I ate in the employee cafeteria, chatted with the janitorial staff, and even sat in on a marketing department brainstorm session, something Julian apparently considered an inefficient meeting. Chloe followed me around all day, her expression growing more and more bewildered. During the afternoon coffee break, she finally cornered me. Did you take the wrong medication this morning? Or, Chloe, I said, looking at her seriously, if someone wore a mask every day of their life, and one day they suddenly took it off, why do you think that would be? She thought for a moment. Either they finally found themselves, or they decided to put on a new mask. Her answer stopped me in my tracks. I looked down at my coffee. Julian only drank black coffee, no sugar. I always secretly added 3 packets. What kind of person do you think Julian is? I asked on an impulse. Chloe was silent for a long time. He's a perfect businessman, but she didn't finish, just shook her head slightly. When I got back to the penthouse that night, I found a note slipped under the door. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Have Chloe take you on a tour of the warehouse district. G? Julian's code name? I smiled, tore up the note, and flushed it down the toilet. This whole spy game was actually kind of thrilling. Before bed, I checked my schedule for the next day. As Julian had suggested, I had Chloe postpone my scheduled meeting with Mark. In its place, I added an item of my own, on-site inspection of warehouse management. Looking at the title, I couldn't help but smile grimly. A week ago, I was a delivery guy. Now I was going to inspect warehouse management. Life really was a strange and twisted comedy. On the 3rd morning, I made a point of getting to the office earlier than usual. Just as the elevator doors were about to close, a hand shot out and stopped them. It was Mark. "Morning, Julian," he said, squeezing into the elevator with a fake smile. "I hear you're visiting the warehouses today." "That's right." I nodded. "Time to check in on the front lines." "How unusual," Mark said, his eyes narrowing. "You never go to places like that." In fact, he took a step closer. "A lot of your recent behavior has been very unusual." The air in the elevator felt thick and heavy. I watched the floor numbers tick by slowly, my own heartbeat so loud I was sure he could hear it. "People change, Mark," I said, forcing a calm I didn't feel. "Do they?" Mark sneered. Can you explain why you suddenly started using a calculator on your phone? Why your signature has completely changed? Why?" He suddenly reached out and snatched the glasses off my face. "You started wearing glasses?" Julian's vision is 20/20ths. I stumbled backward, my back hitting the elevator wall. Just then, with a soft chime, the elevator stopped and the door slid open. Chloe was standing there. Her eyes darted between the two of us. "Mr. Croft, Mr. Adler, good morning. The warehouse team is ready for you." Mark let out a frustrated grunt and shoved the glasses back into my hand. "See you at the board meeting, Julian." He put a threatening emphasis on my borrowed name. After the doors closed, I let out a long breath, my legs so weak I almost couldn't stand. "He knows, doesn't he?" Chloe whispered. I nodded, my throat dry. "And I have to find a way to fight back before that board meeting." "Follow me," Chloe said, turning on her heel. "Julian told me to take you somewhere." Chapter 5. Grassroots Rebellion and a Twist of Fate. "Where are we going?" I asked, tried to keep up with Chloe as she power-walked toward the underground garage. Julian said there was something you needed to see. She didn't look back, the clicks of her heels echoing on the concrete. "Mark is already suspicious. We have to hurry." "Julian? You mean the real Julian?" I jogged to catch up. "Isn't he out delivering packages? How does he have time to manage company affairs?" Chloe stopped abruptly and turned to face me. "You have no idea what Julian Croft is capable of multitasking." She pulled a face mask and a baseball cap from her purse. "Put these on. You don't want to be recognized, do you?" 5 minutes later, disguised as a rank-and-file employee, I followed Chloe to the company's number 3 warehouse. Unlike the gleaming, modern office tower, this was an old, dimly lit building that smelled of dust and cardboard. "Why did you bring me here?" I whispered. Chloe didn't answer. Instead, she walked over to a middle-aged man who was hauling a box. "Mr. Henderson, this is our new intern, Ethan. He'll be learning about warehouse management from you today." Mr. Henderson wiped sweat from his brow and looked me up and down. "An intern? This kid looks like a good gust of wind would knock him over. You sure he can handle this work?" I finally understood. Chloe hadn't brought me here as the CEO, but as a lowly intern. Looking at Mr. Henderson's calloused hands and dust-covered uniform, I suddenly grasped Julian's plan. "I can do it," I said, grabbing a nearby box. I'd underestimated its weight and nearly threw out my back. "Ugh, heavier than it looks." Mr. Henderson chuckled. "That's one of the small ones, kid." He pointed to a pile of much larger crates. "Those are the real backbreakers." For the next 2 hours, I worked harder than I ever had in my life. I was constantly bending, lifting, and stacking. My shirt was soaked with sweat, and my hands were raw. But I gritted my teeth and pushed through, not just because Julian had sent me, but because I needed to know how the foundation of his company really operated. During a break, I sat on a stack of boxes, panting. "Mr. Henderson, is it like this every day?" "This is nothing," he said, chugging a bottle of water. "During the busy season, we work 12-hour shifts. We have to jog to the bathroom just to save time." "Don't you get days off?" "Days off." He laughed like it was the funniest joke he'd ever heard. "Last year, the CEO changed the pay structure. We're paid by the piece now. If you don't move boxes, you don't make money." "My back." He pounded his lower back with his fist. "I just had surgery last month. I took 3 days off and came right back. Can't afford not to." My heart sank. A policy Julian had implemented. The same Julian who acted like such an enlightened manager in front of me. "Doesn't the company have health insurance?" I asked. "Sure, but it could take 6 months to get reimbursed." Mr. Henderson shook his head. "Ethan, you look like a smart kid. Get an office job. This is no life for a person." Just then, the warehouse supervisor walked over, and Mr. Henderson immediately fell silent and went back to work. The supervisor scowled at me. "Which department are you from? I haven't seen you before." "I'm a new intern," I said, scrambling to my feet. "An intern? Why aren't you in HR? What are you doing in my warehouse?" He waved his hand dismissively. "Get out of here. No loitering." I was about to explain when Chloe appeared out of nowhere. "Mr. Davis, he's an intern for my department, here for a work experience rotation. He has approval from Director Evans." She flashed a pass. The supervisor's demeanor changed instantly. "Oh, Ms. Mitchell, why didn't you say so? Work experience, that's great. Do you need me to assign someone to show him around?" "No, thank you. We'll just look around ourselves." Chloe pulled me away and whispered, "See? It's like 2 different worlds, the workers and the management." I followed her in silence. The warehouse was much larger than I'd expected, with organized sections but outdated equipment. The workers moved like ghosts, silent and grim. It was a stark contrast to the cheerful, collaborative atmosphere of the corporate offices. "Has Julian ever been here before?" I asked. Chloe shook her head. "He only looks at spreadsheets and efficiency reports." She gave me a meaningful glance. "Until you showed up." When we reached the heavy-duty shelving area, I saw several workers struggling to manually lift large boxes onto shelves. "Why aren't they using the forklift?" I asked, pointing to one parked in a corner. "Company policy," one of the workers grumbled. "We can only use the forklift for shelves 10 feet and higher. But the boxes on the 5 to 9 foot shelves are just as heavy. They say it's to save on fuel costs." I couldn't just stand there and watch. I walked over to help lift one of the large boxes. "Watch out," someone shouted, but I already had my hands on it. With a sharp crack, an excruciating pain shot through my lower back. I collapsed, the box nearly crushing me. "Ethan!" Chloe cried, rushing to my side. I lay on the floor, unable to move. My back felt like it had been stabbed. The workers gathered around, hoisting me onto a hand truck. "Get him to the infirmary. Quick! The infirmary can't fix this. He needs to go to a hospital. Should we call an ambulance?" "No." I managed to gasp through the pain. The infirmary is fine. An ambulance would blow my cover for sure." As they were wheeling me through the main warehouse aisle, the door to the supervisor's office opened, and a man stepped out who made my blood run cold. It was Arthur Croft, the chairman of Zenith Group, Julian's father. He was flanked by several executives, clearly on an inspection tour. "What's going on here?" the chairman asked, frowning at me on the hand truck. "Sir, this in turn hurt his back lifting a box," the supervisor stammered. The chairman's gaze fell on my face. For a heart-stopping moment, I thought he recognized me, even though we had never met. His eyes were sharp as a hawk's, just like Julian's. "Young people these days don't get enough exercise," he said, shaking his head and preparing to move on. I don't know where I got the courage, but I grit my teeth against the pain and spoke up. "Sir, it's not a lack of exercise. It's an unreasonable company policy." The entire warehouse fell silent. The supervisor went pale, Chloe's eyes widened, and even the workers pushing my cart froze. Arthur Croft slowly turned back. "What did you say?" I was in too deep to back out now. "The policy says forklifts can only be used for shelves 10 feet and higher, but the cargo on the lower shelves is just as heavy. The workers bend over to lift hundreds of these boxes every day. The rate of spinal injury is 37%. The cost of medical expenses and lost work time far exceeds any savings on fuel. The chairman's expression shifted from surprise to contemplation. He took a step closer. Where did you get those numbers? I was at a loss for words. I couldn't very well say I'd just gotten them from the workers. Sir, Chloe stepped in smoothly. Those figures are from the latest employee health and wellness report. It was submitted last week. The chairman's eyes darted between me and Chloe. Then he asked, "What's your name?" Eitan Reed. I almost bit my tongue. I had to remember not to use Julian's name. An intern? From which department? Marketing. Intern, I said, pulling a department out of thin air. Arthur Croft nodded thoughtfully. Take him to the infirmary. As he turned to leave, he glanced back at me one last time. Young man, courage is a fine quality. But next time, remember to follow the proper channels when you have a complaint. As the chairman and his entourage walked away, everyone let out a collective sigh of relief. The supervisor wiped his brow. Kid, you almost got us all fired. Who talks to the chairman like that? But some of the other workers gave me a covert thumbs up. On the way to the infirmary, Chloe whispered, Are you insane? You nearly blew your cover. I couldn't help it. I winced as a fresh wave of pain shot through my back. Those workers have it so rough. Chloe's expression softened. You know, Julian would never not be able to help it over something like this. At the infirmary, the nurse said it was just a muscle strain and that I'd be fine after a few days of rest. She gave me a heat patch and some pain pills. Chloe insisted on driving me back to the penthouse. On the way, she took a call, and her expression grew strange. What is it? I asked. Julian, the other Mr. Croft, she corrected herself, says he wants to see you tonight. At the usual place. Which usual place? The back entrance to the office, where you first switched. She paused. He also told me to tell you, nice work. I was stunned. He knows what happened at the warehouse. He knows everything, Chloe said, a note of awe in her voice. Even when he's not at the office, he has his ways of staying on top of things. That evening, I dragged my aching back to the rear entrance of the Zenith Tower. Julian was already there, leaning against the wall, scrolling through his phone. I hear you almost blew our cover in front of my dad, he said by way of greeting. It's your fault for having such a ridiculous warehouse policy. I shot back. Those guys are working themselves to the bone, and they can't even use a forklift. To my surprise, Julian didn't argue. He just nodded. I know. In fact, I've already asked Chloe to start drafting a revision to that policy. Huh. I stared at him. Why? I thought you only care about the numbers. Because the numbers tell me that our workers' compensation costs are rising, he said with a shrug. But you were right. Some things can't be seen in a spreadsheet. I looked at him in disbelief. Was this arrogant CO actually admitting he was wrong? Don't give me that look, Julian said, looking away uncomfortably. I brought you a gift. He pulled a manila envelope from his backpack. Leverage against Mark. I quickly opened it. Inside were financial records and photographs. What is this? Partial evidence of his embezzlement, Julian said with a cold smile. I started investigating him 3 months ago. I just didn't expect him to make a move first. You knew all this time? Why didn't you expose him? I was waiting for the right moment. His eyes grew sharp. The day before the board meeting. One clean shot. I took a sharp breath, suddenly realizing the depth of this man's cunning. He wasn't just a workaholic. He was a patient hunter. So what do I do now? Keep playing me, Julian said, clapping me on the shoulder. How's the back? It's okay. Wait, how did you know my back was hurt? Chloe told me. He paused. She seems to like you. My face flushed. What are you talking about? She likes you, doesn't she? She's been with you for 5 years. In 5 years, she's never smiled the way she has these past few days, Julian said, his voice surprisingly soft. She said you showed her a different way of looking at things. I didn't know how to respond, so I changed the subject. How was your day? Getting used to the delivery life? To my surprise, Julian actually smiled. It's been interesting. Especially, he stopped himself. Never mind. It's nothing. What is it? Come on, tell me. Your friend Sarah, he said, his eyes lighting up. I delivered a package to her today, and she invited me in for coffee. What? I almost jumped up, which sent another jolt of pain through my back. Ow! Why would she invite you for coffee? Because I did her a small favor, Julian said with a smug look. She'd ordered some furniture online, so I helped her carry it upstairs and assemble it. My jaw hit the floor. You? Julian Croft, the great CEO? Assembling furniture? It was more fun than I expected, he said with a shrug. She's a very special girl. Not at all like you described. A sour feeling churned in my stomach. Julian had gotten further with her in 3 days than I had in 2 years of pining. Don't give me that look, he said, reading my mind. I was just helping her out, as you. He checked his watch. I have to go. I got a night shift. Wait, I called after him. Your dad asked for my name today. I told him it was Ethan Reed. Is that going to be a problem? Julian stopped in his tracks. My dad. His expression turned strange. What was his reaction? He just asked what department I was in and said I had courage. To my astonishment, Julian burst out laughing. This is great. This is priceless. He laughed so hard he had to bend over. Do you know he hasn't praised me once in 20 years? I was stunned. This man, who stood at the pinnacle of wealth and power, was laughing like a little boy who'd just been given a piece of candy. Keep it up, Ethan Reed, he said, turning to leave, his posture looking surprisingly relaxed. See you at the board meeting. Back in Julian's penthouse, I soaked in the whirlpool tub, my mind racing. The day's events had been more dramatic than the past 20 years of my life combined. From warehouse worker to confronting the chairman, from a back injury to earning Julian's respect. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Chloe. Julian, I've drafted the proposal for the warehouse policy reform. Would you like to review it? Before I could reply, another message came through. By the way, is your back still hurting? Do you have any medicine at home? That simple question sent a warmth spreading through my chest. I hesitated, then typed back. It still hurts a little. I'm not really sure what to do for it. 3 minutes later, the doorbell rang. On the security monitor, I saw Chloe standing outside, holding a small bag. You said you didn't know what to do, she said with a sigh as she came in. I figured Julian has never had to take care of himself. She had me lie face down on the couch and gently applied a soothing cream to my back. Her fingers were warm and strong, the cream cool against my skin. The pain began to subside almost immediately. Chloe, I asked, turning my head to look at her, why are you so loyal to Julian? Her hand paused for a second, because he gave me a chance. 5 years ago, I was just a clerk. He saw my potential and promoted me. That's it. And her voice grew softer. He was the only person who never treated me differently because of how I look. I turned to look at her, really look at her for the first time. She wasn't just pretty. She had a quiet, luminous beauty like a polished gem. He's changed, Chloe said suddenly. Because of you. Me? He never cared if the warehouse workers were tired. He never made small talk with his assistant. And he certainly would never go undercover as a delivery guy to protect a secret. She smiled faintly. You've changed the way he sees the world. I didn't know what to say. Chloe was giving me too much credit. I was just an ordinary guy who'd been swept up in this crazy scheme. The board meeting is tomorrow, she said, putting the cap back on the cream. Are you ready? Not at all, I admitted honestly. Don't worry, she smiled. I'll be there with you. As she walked to the door, she turned back. Oh, and the chairman wants to see you. Before the board meeting tomorrow. I shot up from the couch. What? He specifically asked to see that courageous intern, Chloe said, her expression unreadable. It seems you made quite an impression on him. After she left, I collapsed back onto the couch, my head spinning. Tomorrow, I not only had to face the board, I had to meet the chairman again as Ethan Reed. And the real Julian seemed to be enjoying this whole development a little too much. This game of switched identities was spiraling in a direction I could never have predicted. Chapter 6. A Conspiracy Uncovered. The night before the board meeting, I paced Julian's penthouse like a caged tiger. Tomorrow was the big day. Even though Julian said he had the goods on Mark, my stomach was still doing gymnastics. My phone lit up. A text from Chloe. Confirmed. Mark plans to challenge your identity at the meeting tomorrow. He has video evidence of your signature and behavior. I immediately dialed Julian. Mark's making his move. I know. His voice on the other end was unnervingly calm. All you have to do tomorrow is let him make the first move. And then what? Then you watch me work. He paused. By the way, the meeting with the chairman is still on, right? Yeah. Chloe said he wants to see that courageous intern. My throat felt tight. Am I supposed to keep up the act? Of course, Julian said with a slight chuckle. My father despises liars. If he starts to admire someone and then finds out he's been deceived, his anger will be twice as bad. My heart sank. So you're sending me in as a sacrificial lamb? No, I'm sending you in to work a miracle. His tone suddenly turned serious. Ethan, do you know why my father was impressed with you? Because you told the truth and you did something about it. That's something I haven't managed to do in front of him in 30 years. After the call, I stared up at the priceless crystal chandelier, my mind a blank. Tomorrow would either be the greatest moment of my life or the beginning of the end. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror in Julian's most expensive suit, practicing his signature over and over. Compared to my first attempts, at least now, it looked like it was written by the same person. Mr. Croft, the car is here, Chloe said, appearing at the door with a briefcase. You look nervous. Of course I'm nervous, I whispered. If I screw this up today, your real boss is going to kill me when he gets back. Chloe tilted her head. Do you really think he'd have the heart to kill you? Her words made me pause. What do you mean? Nothing. She walked quickly toward the elevator. Let's go see the chairman. He's expecting Ethan Reed at 9. In the elevator, I couldn't help but ask, Chloe, whose side are you on? The company's, she answered without hesitation. Whoever is best for the company. That's whose side I'm on. And Julian? Isn't he good for the company? He's too perfect. So perfect he's not human. Her voice was barely a whisper. Until you showed up. The elevator doors opened, and I had to swallow my follow-up questions as we walked toward the chairman's office. Arthur Croft's secretary nodded at Chloe. The chairman is waiting. The intern can go right in. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. Arthur Croft stood with his back to me, looking out the window, his posture as straight and unyielding as a pine tree. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I am Ethan Reed. My voice was steadier than I expected. He turned, his sharp eyes scanning my face. A marketing intern? Interesting. I checked the personnel files. There's no record of you. My palms instantly grew damp. I'm a temporary intern. Maybe my paperwork hasn't been processed yet. Seat. He gestured to the sofa and sat opposite me. Why did you question the warehouse policy? This was a question I could answer honestly. Because it's unreasonable. The rate of spinal injury for the workers is too high. In the long run, the company loses more than it saves. Do you know how much it would cost to reform that policy? Edo. I pulled out my phone and showed him the calculations I made last night. The short-term investment is about $800,000 for new equipment, but that cost can be recouped within 2 years through reduced injury claims and increased efficiency. I handed him the phone. This is the cost-benefit analysis I put together. Arthur Croft raised an eyebrow and took the phone, glancing at the screen. An intern knows about this stuff. I studied engineering management in college. I lied through my teeth. And my uncle owns a factory. I hear him talk about this kind of thing all the time. The chairman handed my phone back and suddenly asked, why did you choose to work at Zenith? An idea struck me. Because I heard that Zenith values talent, regardless of seniority. This was actually something Chloe had told me was Julian's hiring philosophy. The chairman's expression shifted subtly. Did Julian tell you that? No, it's something I've observed. I chose my words carefully. From the top executives down to the interns, the company treats everyone with respect. That kind of culture is rare. That seemed to be the right thing to say. A flicker of satisfaction crossed his face. Julian has done a good job. You check his watch. The board meeting is at 10. You should go. Starting next week, you'll be transferred to the strategic planning department. What? I was dumbfounded. You don't want the position? No. No. Thank you. I scrambled to my feet, nearly tripping over the coffee table. I just didn't expect. For the first time, Arthur Croft smiled. Young man, Zenith needs people who aren't afraid to speak the truth. He paused. By the way, bring a copy of your degree to HR this afternoon. I stumbled out of his office, my legs like jelly. What just happened? A promotion? But Ethan Reed didn't even exist. Chloe was waiting in the hallway. When she heard what had happened, her eyes went wide. The chairman personally transferred you? That hasn't happened in 20 years. She bit her lip, thinking, I have to tell Julian. How are you going to tell him? I asked despairingly. That I, using a fake identity, just got the kind of recognition from his father that he's been craving for 30 years. Chloe let out a small laugh. Pretty much. She checked her watch. Time for the board meeting. Are you ready? Not at all. Good. Stay that way, she said mysteriously. Julian said it would be better. The boardroom was already filled with a dozen directors. I squared my shoulders, walked in like I owned the place, and sat at the head of the table, trying to look calm as I scanned the room. Mark Adler sat to my right, a folder in front of him and a smirk on his face. His eyes were fixed on me like a predator sizing up its prey. Arthur Croft was the last to arrive. Everyone stood. After a brief opening, he gestured for me to begin the quarterly report. I started reading from the script Chloe had prepared, doing my best to imitate Julian's tone. A few of the directors nodded along, seemingly unaware of anything unusual. In summary, third quarter revenue grew by 15%, with net profits increasing by... I was in the middle of a sentence when Mark cut me off. Julian, how are you coming along on the Southern Region warehouse expansion project? My heart clenched. This was his first move. Following Julian's instructions, I feigned hesitation. That still requires further study. Study? Mark's voice rose. You said the same thing 2 weeks ago. He turned to the other directors. Does anyone else find this strange? Julian is known for being decisive, yet recently he's been delaying decision after decision. The atmosphere in the room grew tense. Several directors exchanged glances. Someone asked, Julian, are you not feeling well? Oh, he's feeling fine, Mark sneered, opening his folder. But he might not be the Julian we all know. He took out a tablet and played a video. Me, clumsily trying to forge Julian's signature, and another shot of me fiddling with my earpiece. As you can see, gentlemen, over the past week, our CEO has forgotten how to sign his own name, and his behavior has been completely erratic. Mark was gloating now. And what's more, he played a second video, this one of Julian and me in the restroom, passing the earpiece. My blood ran cold. It was over. This footage was taken 3 days ago. Mark announced to the stunned directors. It's obvious that someone has been impersonating our CEO. The room erupted in chaos. Arthur Croft's face turned to stone. What is the meaning of this? All eyes were on me. My palms were slick with sweat, my mind a complete blank. Just then, the boardroom door swung open. Sorry I'm late, everyone. Every head in the room turned, including mine. Standing in the doorway was Julian Croft, dressed in a tailored suit. No, wait, that was me in Julian's clothes. No, that was... My brain short-circuited. Mr. Adler is right. Someone has been impersonating me, Julian said, striding into the room, his voice strong and steady. But it's not the man sitting at this table. It was someone hired by Mark himself. He threw a stack of documents onto the table. This is the evidence of Mark's embezzlement and collusion with our competitors over the past 6 months. He hired an imposter to create chaos and cover his tracks. The directors gasped. Mark's face went white. That's a lie. It was you who... I what? Julian sneered. Mark, you even had someone get plastic surgery to look like me to stop me from exposing you. He pointed at me. This man is a private investigator I hired from a security firm to gather evidence on you. I listened, dumbfounded, as Julian spun this incredible story. He hadn't just shown up in the nick of time. He'd created a perfect cover for me. This is absurd, Mark sputtered, getting to his feet. Mr. Chairman, you have to believe me. Arthur Croft's face was grim. Mark, first, you can explain these transfer records. He flipped through the documents Julian had provided. Why was company money being funneled into your brother-in-law's account? Mark's face turned ashen. He suddenly pointed at me. What about him? Are we just going to ignore the fact that an imposter has been sitting in our board meetings for a week? Julian was unflappable. Mr. Reed is a licensed professional investigator. All of his actions were within the bounds of the law. He shot me a look. Isn't that right, Mr. Reed? Oh, yes. I scrambled to my feet and pulled out the ID card Julian had given me last night. It was a real PI license with my name on it. This is my authorization. Mark looked from me to Julian, then back again, suddenly grasping at a straw. Wait, if he's an investigator, then why did the chairman meet with him this morning and offer him a position in the strategic planning department? Was that part of the act too? All eyes turned to the chairman. My heart leaped into my throat. This was it. The lie was about to unravel. Arthur Croft was silent for a moment, then he smiled. Of course it was. I had to play my part to assist with the investigation. He looked at Mark, his eyes like chips of ice. Now, do you have anything else to say? I stared at the chairman, speechless. He was helping us. He was lying for us. Why? Faced with irrefutable evidence, Mark completely fell apart. As security escorted him out, the board voted unanimously to suspend him from all duties. Julian retook his seat at the head of the table, and I, the private investigator, was politely asked to leave. I stumbled out of the boardroom, my legs so weak I almost collapsed. Chloe caught my arm. It's okay. Let's go to the break room. In the break room, I downed an entire bottle of water before I could speak. What? What has happened? How did Julian get back here? He never really left, Chloe said with a smile. Mark was under surveillance the whole time. Today's drama was staged just for him. What about me? I almost had a heart attack. But you were brilliant, she said seriously. Julian said you were the most composed actor he's ever seen. I couldn't help but laugh. Well, I did play a CEO for a week without getting caught. Then I remembered something. Wait, why did the chairman lie for us? He knew about Ethan Reed. Chloe's expression grew complicated. That's the most interesting part. Julian asked me to tell you to meet him tonight. The usual place. At 7 o'clock. I was back at the rear entrance of the building. Julian was already there, still in his delivery uniform. Nice performance today, he said as I walked up. You nearly gave me a stroke. I punched him lightly on the arm. You had that evidence all along. I've been gathering it for 3 months. He leaned against the wall, looking genuinely relaxed for the first time. But today's victory, I have you to thank for that. Thank me? My father hasn't taken my side in 20 years, he said softly. Until today. He saw me and you working together to save the company. It finally clicked. So he knew the truth, but he chose to help us anyway? Julian nodded. He said that you, Ethan Reed, are a rare talent. He handed me an envelope. This is for you. I opened it. It was an official offer of employment. The position, special assistant to the chairman. The salary was astronomical. I can't accept this, I said, stunned. I'm a delivery guy. How could I? Ethan, Julian said, looking me straight in the eye, do you know why I could successfully impersonate you? And you could impersonate me? I shook my head. Because, at our core, we're the same kind of person, he said with a sincerity I'd never heard from him before. We just grew up in different environments. You have a perspective I lack, and I have resources you don't. He tapped the contract. My father was right. Zenith needs people who aren't afraid to speak the truth. I held the contract, speechless. A week ago, I was worried about making rent. Now, I was being offered a job I couldn't have even dreamed of. I need to think about it. Of course, Julian said, surprisingly understanding. By the way, I have a special delivery to make tomorrow. He smiled mysteriously. From Sarah. To you. What? What's she giving me? You'll find out tomorrow, he said with a wink. And in return, you have to do something for me. What's that? Keep playing Julian Croft for a few more days. His expression turned serious. Mark may be out, but his accomplices are still in the company. I need you in the spotlight to draw their fire while I investigate from the shadows. I sighed. A body double again? How much does this one pay? Julian laughed. I just offered you a job with a 6-figure salary, and you're still worried about a few bucks? He turned to leave, then looked back. Oh, and Chloe seems to really like you. Don't screw it up. Watching him walk away, I suddenly realized that this absurd game of switched identities might have just changed my entire life. The next afternoon, as I was getting used to being the CEO again, there was a soft knock on my office door. Come in. Chloe entered with a cup of coffee, her expression softer than usual. Mr. Croft, the files you requested. Thanks. I took the folder, our fingers brushing. We both recoiled, as if from an electric shock. Saw the... It's okay. After an awkward silence, Chloe asked, have you decided to accept the chairman's offer? I looked up at her. You know about that? Julian told me. She hesitated. If you accept, I won't be your assistant anymore. The hint of disappointment in her voice made my heart ache. Would you miss me? Chloe's face turned bright red. I'll go prepare for your afternoon meetings. She turned and practically fled, but she collided with a delivery man at the door. Package for Julian Croft, the man in the delivery uniform announced loudly. It was Julian. He handed me a small, elegant box. Signature required. Chloe discreetly slipped out of the room. I closed the door and eagerly tore open the box. Inside was a hand-woven good luck bracelet. A small card read, heard you've been under a lot of stress lately. This is for good luck. Dinner sometime? Sarah. I looked up to find Julian watching me with a sly grin. What did you tell her? I asked suspiciously. The truth, he said with a shrug, that you've been working on a top-secret project for Zenith and you've been under a lot of pressure. He paused. She seemed really worried about you. I clutched the bracelet, a warmth spreading through my chest. Sarah had never given me a gift before. By the way, Julian said, his voice dropping, I overheard something on my route. Mark's accomplice might be Zhang, the director of finance. He's been in frequent contact with Apex Materials, the same guys who stormed the lobby. The very same, he nodded. You need to be careful for the next few days. They might try something. Why me? You're the CEO now. No, Julian said with a cunning smile. The official announcement is that I am on a temporary leave of absence to assist with the investigation into Mark Adler, and that you, Ethan Reed, special assistant to the chairman, are acting as interim CEO. My jaw hit the floor. What? You set me up again? It's for your protection, he said, clapping me on the shoulder. With the chairman backing you, no one will dare to touch you. And he adjusted his delivery cap, need to stay in the shadows to finish the investigation. As he was leaving, he added, oh, and Chloe submitted her resignation letter yesterday. She's requested a transfer to the strategic planning department. Strange, in the 5 years she's worked for me, she's never once asked for a transfer. After the door closed, I sat in my chair stunned. I had to watch out for a conspiracy inside the company, navigate a complicated love triangle with Chloe and Sarah, and pretend to be the acting CEO. This game of switched identities was getting more complex and more dangerous by the minute. Chapter 7. The Boardroom Showdown. I sat in the CEO's office, holding the bracelet from Sarah, smiling like a teenager with his first crush. It had been 3 days, and I still hadn't worked up the courage to contact her. Partly because this acting CEO gig was insanely busy, and partly because I had no idea which version of myself to be when I saw her. Mr. Croft, it's an emergency. Chloe burst in, her face pale. Mark Adler's been released on bail. My hand trembled, and the bracelet clattered onto the desk. What? But the evidence was solid. The finance director, Zhang, got him a lawyer. They're claiming the evidence was fabricated, Chloe said quickly. Worse, Mark has demanded to speak at a special board meeting this afternoon. A chill went down my spine. Julian had warned me Mark's accomplice was in the finance department. Does the real Julian know? Chloe nodded. He's on his way back. But, she bit her lip. The meeting starts in half an hour. I immediately tried to call Julian, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead. You need to prepare, Chloe said, handing me a file. These are the points Mark is likely to raise. I've listed them all. I scanned the list, and my stomach sank with each line. Mismatched signatures, a sudden change in decision-making style, unfamiliarity with basic business operations. They were all my biggest weaknesses. This is a How to Expose Ethan Reed for Dummies guide, I said with a grimace. Chloe, if I get exposed today. You won't, she said, her hand briefly squeezing mine. I'll be right there to prompt you. But, she hesitated, if things get out of control, you need to protect yourself first. I looked up at her and saw a complex emotion in her eyes. Over the past week, this sharp, professional woman had gone from suspicion and caution to actively helping me hide my identity. A warmth spread through my chest. Thank you, I said softly. No matter what happens, thank you for everything this week. Chloe's eyelashes fluttered. I'm just doing what's right. She checked her watch. It's time to go to the boardroom. The boardroom was already packed. I forced myself to walk in with my head held high and took the seat at the head of the table. Arthur Croft sat his place, giving me a stoic nod. Mark Adler, however, was seated at the far end, looking relaxed and smiling, a far cry from a man who'd just been released on bail. Good afternoon, everyone. I tried to mimic Julian's tone. This special meeting has been convened to review. Let's not waste time. Mark cut me off, standing up to address the room. Esteemed members of the board, today I am here to expose a shocking fraud. He took out a flash drive. If I may, I'd like to play this video. The chairman gave a slight nod, and a staff member plugged the drive into the computer. A video appeared on the large screen. It was me and Julian at the back entrance of the building, our very first meeting. The audio was crystal clear. You could hear us discussing the 1-week identity swap. This so-called Julian Croft, Mark said, pointing at my image on the screen, his voice trembling with excitement, is in fact an imposter, a delivery boy named Ethan Reed, and a real Julian Croft. The video switched to Julian in his delivery uniform. Is out there playing dress-up. The room erupted. The directors started whispering, their eyes fixed on me with shock and suspicion. I felt the blood drain from my face, my fingers trembling under the table. Not only that, Mark pressed on, this Ethan Reed has also been masquerading as a special assistant to the chairman, stealing company secrets. He turned to Arthur Croft. Mr. Chairman, you've been deceived as well. All eyes turned to the chairman. The old man's face was grim, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the table. Mark, you're aware of the consequences of slander. I have irrefutable proof. Mark produced a stack of photos, showing me and Julian in his delivery uniform meeting in secret. This was a meticulously planned conspiracy. My mind raced, but I couldn't think of a single way to spin this. The evidence was overwhelming. Mr. Ethan Reed, Mark said, using my real name with a triumphant sneer. Do you have anything to say for yourself? The room was silent. I glanced at Chloe. She was pale, but gave me a slight nod of encouragement. I looked at the chairman. His expression was unreadable. Taking a deep breath, I stood up. First of all, it's true. My name is Ethan Reed. The room buzzed with fresh murmurs. But it never stole any secrets, and the identity swap was Julian Croft's idea. Absurd, Mark shouted. Why would Julian ever propose such a ridiculous thing? Because he wanted to understand the front lines of his own company. I shot back. Mark, can you deny that you embezzled company funds and colluded with our competitors? You're just exposing me to create a diversion. Mark's face faltered for a second, but he quickly recovered. Listen to him. A delivery boy sits in the CEO's chair for a week, and now he thinks he can make accusations. He turned to the other directors. I recommend we call the police immediately and freeze all of Julian Croft's authority. He's clearly had a mental breakdown to have orchestrated this farce. Just then, the boardroom doors were thrown open. Every head in the room turned. Julian Croft, in his delivery uniform, stood in the doorway, holding a package. Package for Julian Croft. The room was in an uproar. Mark was stunned for a moment, then ecstatic. Look, he walked right into it. Security. Grab him. 2 guards rushed forward, but Julian sidestepped them easily. He strode over to my desk and placed the package in front of me. Please sign here. I stared at him, dumbfounded. Was he insane? He was still playing the part? As he handed me the pen, he whispered in my ear, sign Ethan Reed. Understanding dawned. I signed my own name on the delivery slip. Julian took the slip back and turned to the directors. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Julian Croft. This identity swap was entirely for the benefit of the company's development. Lies. Mark roared. You've been derelict in your duties. Have I? Julian said with a cold smile. He took a hard drive out of the package. Then perhaps you should all take a look at this. He connected it to the room's computer, and a password-protected folder appeared on the screen. This is the complete communication history between Mark Adler and Director Zhang for the past 6 months. It includes audio recordings of him instructing Apex Materials to use substandard products, and the screen switched to hotel security footage of Mark exchanging a briefcase with another man. This is the CEO of our largest competitor. Mark sold him the core data for our latest project for $2 million. The directors gasped. Arthur Croft's face grew impossibly dark. This evidence. Mark's face was ashen. How could you possibly? Because I became someone you would never notice. Julian's voice was like ice. A delivery boy, a food courier, a plumber. No one pays attention to them, but they see everything. I stared at Julian in shock. All this time, he wasn't just experiencing a different life. He was conducting a deep cover investigation. As for Mr. Ethan Reed, Julian said, turning to me with a look of understanding. I invited him to join the company. His keen market sense and grassroots experience helped us identify numerous management flaws. He played an audio recording from his phone. It was the conversation I'd had with the workers in the warehouse. After listening, several of the directors began to nod. Even the chairman's expression seemed to soften. This is insane. Mark made One last desperate attempt. A delivery boy helping to run the company? Julian, you've lost your mind. Enough. Arthur Croft finally spoke, his voice low and commanding. Mark, the evidence against you is overwhelming. Do you have anything left to say? He gestured to the guards. Take him away and call the police. As Mark was dragged out, he shot a look of pure hatred at us. The boardroom was silent, the air thick with tension. Julian, the chairman, finally broke the silence. I need an explanation for this. Spectacle. Julian stood tall. Father, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to understand the true state of our company's front lines, and I needed to investigate Mark without his knowledge. Ethan's perspective helped us see problems that none of our executives could. The chairman's gaze shifted to me, including the warehouse policy. I summoned my courage and nodded. Yes, sir. That policy was truly unreasonable. The old man was lost in thought for a long time. Finally, he looked at Julian. Go change your clothes. You look ridiculous. Then come back to the meeting. Then he turned to me. Ethan Reed, you will stay and participate. His words stunned everyone. Not only was he not punishing us, he was officially acknowledging my contribution. Behind me, I heard Chloe let out a quiet sigh of relief. After Julian left, the meeting resumed. I tried to keep a low profile, but several of the directors started actively seeking my input. Mr. Reed, what's your take on this? How would your industry handle this situation? Halfway through the meeting, Julian returned, dressed immaculately in a business suit. The moment he walked in, all eyes were on him. This was the CEO they knew, powerful, elegant, and in control. Regarding the southern region warehouse expansion, Julian said, seamlessly picking up the conversation, I recommend we postpone it and prioritize optimizing our existing logistics. He paused. This recommendation, in fact, came from Ethan Reed. I looked at him, surprised that he would give me public credit. After the meeting, the chairman asked me and Julian to stay behind. The old man sat in his large office chair, his sharp eyes scrutinizing both of us. Are you done playing games? Mr. Chairman, I began nervously. I was talking to my son, he said, cutting me off. Julian, do you have any idea how reckless this was? Allowing an outsider to access company secrets, impersonating you. Father, Ethan understands the real market better than any of our executives, Julian countered. And he saved the company. If he hadn't discovered the collusion between Mark and Apex Materials. That's enough. The chairman slammed his hand on the desk. Starting tomorrow, everything goes back to normal. He turned to me, his tone softening slightly. Ethan Reed, thank you for your assistance. Your payment will be wired to your account as agreed. My heart sank. He was letting me go. It was what I should have expected, but after this week. Mr. Chairman, Julian said suddenly, I would like to hire Ethan Reed as the manager of our newly created market research department. Both the chairman and I stared at him in shock. He understands the grassroots. He can see the problems we can't, Julian said, looking his father straight in the eye. Zenith needs that kind of fresh perspective. The chairman's brow furrowed. Do you know what you're saying? A delivery boy with no degree, no background. It's precisely because he doesn't have our ingrained mindset that he can identify so many issues, Julian insisted. Father, in the past week, our stock price has risen by 5%, and employee satisfaction is up 12%. Those are the changes Ethan brought. The old man was silent for a long time. Finally, he let out a long sigh. Give me a detailed proposal tomorrow. He stood up, and as he was leaving, he gave me a meaningful look. Young man, I hope you live up to this trust. After he left, my legs gave out, and I sank into a chair. Are you crazy? Make me a manager? I never even went to college. But you're better than my entire MBA-educated team, Julian said with a rare smile. What, are you scared? I'm just a delivery guy. No, you're Ethan Reed. He clapped me on the shoulder. Come on, I'll buy you dinner. You've earned it. At the restaurant, I finally got to ask the question that had been bugging me all week. Why did you pick me? There were so many people in the lobby that day. Julian sipped his wine. Because when you were looking at the company brochure, you didn't flip straight to the salary and benefits page. You stopped at the page with the employee activities, and you smiled. He shrugged. I wanted to know what could make a delivery guy smile like that. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. That's it. It was a gut feeling, he said, swirling the wine in his glass. And it turns out I was right. The waiter brought our appetizers, and we fell silent for a moment, looking at Julian across the table, so elegant and composed, it was hard to connect him with the young man in the delivery uniform who got yelled at by angry customers. "By the way," he said suddenly, "you should go see Sarah?" My fork clattered against my plate. Does she know? Yeah. Julian's expression grew complicated. She saw the live broadcast of the board meeting on TV today, and she recognized me. Recognized you? As Julian Croft, the delivery boy, he said with a wry smile. She called and demanded to know why I'd lied to her. I couldn't bring myself to tell her you put me up to it. My stomach dropped. So she's mad. Furious. He paused. But she wants to meet the real Ethan Reed. Which is you. I suddenly lost my appetite. Sarah, the girl I'd had a crush on for 2 years, was now hurt because of this stupid identity swap. I'll explain everything, I said, my resolve hardening. I'll go see her tomorrow. Julian nodded, then said, Chloe resigned today. What? I looked up shocked. Why? She requested a transfer to the new market research department, he said, giving me a knowing look. It's strange. She's never shown any interest in market research before. Until today. My face felt hot. That has nothing to do with me. Of course it does, Julian chuckled. She's making a play for the future manager of the market research department. I was speechless, my heart pounding. All those days working closely with Chloe, from our initial hostility to our eventual camaraderie. I didn't dare think about what she might feel for me, or what I was starting to feel for her. You too. Julian shook his head. Never mind. Let's eat. After dinner, Julian insisted on driving me home to his penthouse. According to him, I had to stay at least one more night for the official handover tomorrow. As we stepped into the elevator, my phone buzzed. It was Chloe. I hear you've accepted the position in the marketing department. I quickly typed back. It's not final yet. Why did you request a transfer? For a new beginning, she replied instantly. Then she added, and to work with people I can trust. I stared at the screen, a goofy grin spreading across my face, until the elevator chimed, announcing our arrival. When the doors opened, I was surprised to see Chloe standing there, holding a folder. Chloe? What are you? I came to drop off the handover documents, she said, her expression professional, though the tips of her ears were pink. And also, she pulled a small box from her purse. A farewell gift. I took the box and opened it. Inside was a simple, elegant silver tie clip. This is too much. It's not, she said softly. I just want you to remember that whether you're in a delivery uniform or a business suit, you're still Ethan Reed. A warmth spread through my chest. I was about to thank her when the elevator doors opened again. Julian stepped out and froze when he saw us. I forgot His eyes landed on Chloe, and a look of understanding crossed his face. Oh, I'll come back later. Wait, Chloe and I said in unison, then looked at each other awkwardly. Julian laughed. Relax. I just came back for my spare car key. He took the folder from Chloe. I'll handle these. You too. Take your time. He winked at me and disappeared back into the elevator. Chloe and I were left standing in the hallway, the air thick with unspoken words. Do you want to come in for some tea? I asked awkwardly. Chloe bit her lip. No, I should go. I'll see you tomorrow. Boss. She turned to leave, then looked back. Oh, and a Miss Sarah Collins called this afternoon. She'd like to meet you at the coffee shop tomorrow at 10. After the elevator doors closed, I leaned against my door, trying to calm my racing heart. Tomorrow, I would have to face Sarah, accept a new job, and start a completely new life. The past week felt like a dream, but the cool, solid weight of the tie clip in my hand was a reminder that it was all real. The opportunities, the challenges, and the feelings that had quietly taken root. They were all waiting for me. This game that had changed my destiny was finally coming to an end. At 9:50 a.m., I stood outside the Harbor Cafe, my heart hammering against my ribs. In 10 minutes, I was going to face Sarah as my true self. I had to explain the insane identity swap and why Julian Croft had pretended to be me. My phone buzzed. It was Chloe. Board meeting at 3. Don't be late. The chairman wants to see your proposal for the new department. A second text followed. Good luck. Sarah will understand. I took a deep breath and pushed open the door. Sarah was already at a table by the window, with 2 cups of coffee in front of her. For 2 years, I'd dreamed of being on a date with her here, but I never imagined it would happen like this. Ethan, she looked up, her eyes a little red, like she'd been crying. Sarah, I can explain. I stood by the table like a schoolboy in the principal's office. Sit, she said, pushing one of the cups toward me. Your favorite, caramel macchiato, extra shot of syrup. The fact that she remembered stung my eyes. I sat down carefully, twisting my hands under the table. So, she said, looking me straight in the eye, the delivery guy who brought me flowers and assembled my furniture was actually the CEO of Zenith Group? I nodded. It was his idea to switch. And you went along with it? You let him pretend to be you to see me. Her voice was laced with hurt. Do you think I'm that easy to fool? No. I rushed to explain. I never wanted to fool you. The truth is, I've had a crush on you for 2 years, and I was too scared to say anything. When he offered me the chance to live his life for a week, I just wasn't thinking straight. 2 years. Sarah's eyes widened. You've really liked me for that long. I used to go out of my way to deliver packages in your neighborhood every morning, just hoping to catch a glimpse of you, I said with a wry smile. Pretty pathetic, huh? Her expression softened. A little. But why didn't you just tell me? I'm me. I was just a delivery guy, I said, staring into my coffee. Even buying you a cup of coffee was something I had a budget for. And now, she asked suddenly, the news said you're going to be a manager at Zenith. Is that true? I looked up, surprised. How did you? Oh, well, that's not set in stone yet. So you're lying to me again? Sarah frowned. No, I mean, Julian offered, but it's not official yet. I fumbled for an explanation, feeling like I was only digging a deeper hole. Sarah studied me for a long moment, then she smiled. Ethan, do you know why I liked all those little gifts you sent? I was stunned. You liked them? Because you always paid attention to what I needed, she said softly. You sent a hand warmer in the winter because you saw I had chapped hands. You sent a mini fan in the summer because I complained about the heat. Even Julian knew which earrings I wanted because you remember me pointing them out. My heart felt like it was going to burst. So you're not mad. Of course I'm mad, she said, glaring at me. But for the sake of a certain idiot who's had a crush on me for 2 years. She slid a piece of paper across the table. My new number. The texts I sent you before. They went to Julian's phone, didn't they? I snatched the note like it was a winning lottery ticket. The world suddenly seemed brighter. We talked for a long time, until Sarah said she had to get to work. As she was leaving, she asked, that assistant, Chloe, are you two just colleagues? I blurted out. Sarah gave me a knowing smile. I hope your acting skills are a little better at the board meeting. At 2:40 p.m., I stood in front of the Zenith Tower, my palms sweating. The suit Julian had sent over this morning fit perfectly, which only made me feel more out of place. Mr. Reed, this way please, Chloe said, appearing at my side. She had a professional smile on her face, but her eyes were warm. The board meeting is about to start. Don't call me that, I whispered. Is the proposal ready? Right here. She handed me a flash drive, her fingertips brushing my palm. Don't be nervous. The data is solid. The elevator ride up felt like an eternity. Chloe gave me a quick rundown. Mark Adler, though suspended, still held shares and would be at the meeting. The chairman expected a detailed presentation. And Julian. Julian stayed up all night putting together some data for you, she said, handing me a folder. He said you might need it. I opened the folder and was stunned. It wasn't market data. It was a detailed personality analysis of every board member, with suggestions on how to handle them. Julian had even anticipated the kinds of tricky questions they might ask. Why? Why is he helping me? I asked. Chloe gave me a strange look. Because you two are. The elevator doors opened, and her words were lost. The boardroom was already filled with directors and executives. Arthur Croft sat at the head of the table. Julian, looking every bit the powerful CEO, sat to his right. He gave me a barely perceptible nod as I entered. Ah, our market expert has arrived, a bald director sneered. I hope today's proposal isn't just another delivery boy's perspective. A few people chuckled. I gripped the flash drive, forcing myself to stay calm. Ethan, the chairman said, his voice neutral. You may begin. I plugged in the drive and pulled up my presentation. The first 10 minutes went smoothly. I laid out my vision for the department, my target demographic analysis, and my initial plans. A few of the younger directors nodded, but most of the older ones were stone-faced. In conclusion, establishing a department focused on grassroots market needs will allow Zenith to achieve a breakthrough in niche sectors. I finished. Anyone can talk a big game, said the bald director. His nameplate read Mr. Liu. But Zenith isn't a charity. We need to see a return on investment. I flipped open Julian's folder to the page on Liu. Mr. Liu's focus on the bottom line is, of course, essential. According to my projections, by optimizing our logistics and delivery services alone, we can save the company $12 million annually. That number made a few of the directors raise their eyebrows. I pressed my advantage, using Julian's data to counter one objection after another. The mood in the room began to shift. Even the chairman gave a slight nod. Just then, the boardroom door was thrown open, and Mark Adler strode in. "Sorry I'm late," he said with a fake smile, his eyes locking onto me. "But I think you'll all want to hear this." Before the chairman could object, he walked to the computer and plugged in his own flash drive. The screen lit up with security footage. Me and Julian at the back in trance, our first meeting, discussing the identity swap. "This, gentlemen, is the truth." Mark's voice trembled with excitement. Our CEO, playing games with a delivery boy, and now, this imposter wants a management position in our company. The room erupted. The directors looked from me to Julian in shock. "Mr. Liu shot to his feet. Julian, is this true?" Julian was unfazed. "The video is real, but Mark's interpretation is not. Ethan Reed is a market consultant I hired. The identity swap was a method for him to gain a deep understanding of our operations." "Absurd," Mark shouted. "The dialogue in that video makes it perfectly clear. Mr. Chairman, your son has openly deceived this board. What is his punishment to be?" The chairman's face was like thunder. "Julian, explain yourself." My back was soaked with sweat. I looked at Julian. He stood up calmly. "Gentlemen, this was an experiment. I wanted to prove that Zenith needs a fresh perspective." He pointed at me. "How many of Ethan's suggestions from the past week have proven to be correct?" A few of the directors started whispering. It was true. From the warehouse reforms to the supplier management, many of my ideas had already shown positive results. Even so, a lie is a lie. Mark insisted. "And now, this delivery boy wants to be a manager? Has Zenith fallen so low?" The room grew tense. A few of the older directors started shaking their heads. Even the younger ones who had supported me began to look uncertain. The chairman's expression grew darker by the second. "I propose," Mark pressed, "that we end this farce immediately and reevaluate Julian Croft's fitness to serve as CEO." His words hit the room like a bomb. The company's stock would plummet. We'd be thrown into chaos. I looked at Julian and saw his jaw was tight. The situation was spiraling out of his control. The real-time stock ticker in the corner of the room showed Zenith's price starting to drop. I had to do something. I shot to my feet. "Everyone, please, let me speak." The room quieted, all eyes on me. I took a deep breath, switched tactics, and closed my presentation. I opened another file, the delivery route data I had compiled last night. "I know I'm just a delivery guy. I don't know anything about high-level business theory," I said, looking Mark straight in the eye. "But I know how to read this." I pointed at the delivery data on the screen. "The Community Express project that you were in charge of, Mr. Adler, claimed a 90% coverage rate. The reality is, it's not even at 50%. Mark's face paled. "That's a lie. We have certified data. Data can be faked, but a delivery driver's eyes don't lie." I pulled up photos from my phone. This is the actual usage rate of the delivery lockers in each district. Community Express was never properly implemented, yet the company invested $80 million in it. Where did that money go? The room was in an uproar. Mark was ashen. This is slander. There's more." I opened the last page of Julian's folder. "Mr. Adler claimed this project had a letter of intent from the Sterling Group, but I contacted their marketing director. I held up my call log. They've never even heard of this project. That's impossible." Mark shrieked. "How do you know?" "Because he's more capable than you think." Chloe suddenly stood up, plugging a flash drive into the computer. These are the original data logs showing Mark's alterations, as well as photos of him meeting with our competitors. I got them from his assistant. Irrefutable proof filled the screen. The directors gasped. Mark staggered backward, his face the color of death. "Wait, Mr. Lou suddenly pointed at the screen. Why is there a logo from Apex Materials on that original data file? I looked closer. He was right. The Apex logo was there. My eyes met Julian's. He was just as shocked as I was. Mark hadn't just embezzled funds. He'd been colluding with Apex to fake the data. Security, the chairman roared. Detain Mark Adler. Call the police. Mark looked around wildly, then lunged toward me. You damn delivery boy. He grabbed a coffee mug from the table and threw it at me. Watch out. Julian leaped in front of me, pulling me out of the way. The coffee splashed all over his suit. Two guards quickly subdued Mark. The room was in chaos. Directors were on their phones, checking the stock price or surrounding the chairman. Are you okay? Julian asked, checking to see if I'd been burned. I shook my head, staring at him. Why did you? He didn't answer. He just turned to face the board. Gentlemen, I apologize for today's disruption, but it proves one thing. Zenith needs to change. It needs fresh blood. He put a hand on my shoulder, and Ethan Reed is the person who can bring that change. The room quieted. The chairman's gaze moved between the two of us. Mr. Chairman, Julian continued, I formally propose the creation of a market research department, with Ethan Reed as its manager, reporting directly to this board. After a moment of silence, Mr. Lou was the first to raise his hand. I second the motion. The young man has a unique perspective. One by one, the other directors voiced their support. Finally, the chairman spoke. The proposal is approved. He looked at me and Julian, his expression unreadable. You to my office. Now, in the chairman's office, Arthur Croft sat behind his massive desk, while Julian and I stood opposite him like two criminals awaiting sentencing. When did you plan this? The chairman asked coldly. 3 weeks ago, Julian admitted. I noticed irregularities in Mark's reports, but I had no proof. So you hired a body double and let him sit in on board meetings? The chairman's voice grew stern. Do you know how dangerous that was? If you hadn't exposed Mark today. But we did, Father, Julian said softly, because Ethan saw things that we couldn't. The chairman turned to me. Young man, why did you agree to take such a risk? I answered honestly. At first, it was for the money. But later, I glanced at Julian. I realized we're a lot alike. We're both searching for the lives we really want. The chairman's sharp gaze lingered on my face for a long time. Then he asked, what do your parents do? I'm an orphan, I said, surprised by the question. I grew up in an orphanage. A strange look crossed the old man's face. Which one? Hope House on the north side of town, I said, confused. Is there a problem? He didn't answer. He turned to Julian. And you? Do you think this risk was worth it? It was, Julian said without hesitation. I've learned more in the past few weeks than in the past 10 years. Father, our management is too disconnected from our front lines. We need people like Ethan. The chairman let out a long sigh. You two fools. But his tone had softened. All right, the market research department is approved. He stood up and, to my surprise, said to me, come to the house for dinner this weekend. Bring your market plan. Julian and I were both stunned. Had he just accepted this? Now get out, the chairman said with a wave of his hand. I have to clean up the mess Mark left behind. Outside his office, Julian and I just looked at each other. Did we just win? I whispered. Julian broke into a rare, relaxed smile. Better than I could have ever planned. He clapped me on the shoulder. Welcome to Zenith, Mr. Manager. That evening, I was sitting in my new office. It wasn't official yet, but Chloe had already had it set up for me. She sat across from me, a joyful look on her face. So, the chairman invited you to dinner? Her eyes were sparkling. That's a miracle. I can't believe it's real. I looked around the spacious, modern office. A few weeks ago, I was a delivery guy, and now you're the youngest department manager in Zenith's history, Chloe said with a smile. By the way, this is for you. She handed me a brand new ID card. On it were the words, Ethan Reed, Manager, Market Research. I took the card, my fingers trembling. This thin piece of plastic felt like proof that my entire life had changed. Chloe, I asked suddenly, in the elevator, what were you about to say? You said Julian and I. Because we are. What? She hesitated. Haven't you noticed? The way you both stand, the way you furrow your brows when you're thinking, even. She pointed to my right hand. The way you both nervously tap your pens. It's identical. A coincidencia. Ives, Iloga. Lots of people look alike. It's more than just looks, she said, then trailed off and shook her head. Never mind. You'll figure it out. For now. She stood up. Someone's here to see you. The office door opened, and Sarah was standing there, holding cake. Congratulations on the promotion, Mr. Manager. I looked between them, surprised. You two know each other. We just met, Sarah said, smiling as she came in. Chloe was kind enough to give me a tour of your new office. The two of them shared a smile, and a shiver went down my spine. They weren't plotting something, were they? Julian is taking everyone out to dinner tonight, Chloe said, grabbing her purse. To celebrate. Julian? Buying dinner? I said, incredulous. Isn't he the one who hates socializing? Chloe smiled mysteriously. He's changed. You've both changed each other a lot. She paused at the door. 7:30, the Topaz room. Don't be late. After she left, Sarah poked my cheek. Hello. Earth to Ethan. Your assistant is very pretty. She's not I said, blushing. I quickly changed the subject. Why did you come here? I wanted to see where you work, she said, setting down the cake. Her expression turned serious. And I wanted to ask you a question. What is it? And this is just a hypothetical, she hesitated, if Julian and Chloe got together, would you be sad? I almost choked. What are you talking about? Because I saw them. Sarah winked, talking in the hallway for a long time. They seemed pretty close. I didn't know how to react. Julian and Chloe? Impossible. But why did the thought of them together leave a sour taste in my mouth? Just kidding. Sarah burst out laughing. Look at you. Come on, let's go to dinner. I'm going to make your new boss spend a lot of money. I looked at the bright, smiling girl in front of me, then thought of the capable, gentle woman who had just left my office. I suddenly realized that this identity swap had given me more than just a job. It had given me a chance to rediscover myself and to see others in a new light. Like Julian said, we had both found what we were really looking for in this game. And now, the game was over, and a new life was just beginning. Chapter 9, A New Beginning. 2 months later, I stood by the window of the market research department, looking out at the city below. The office was filled with the fruits of our labor from the past 8 weeks. Prototypes for new community delivery lockers, a redesigned warehouse workflow, and reports on employee satisfaction. On the corner of my desk were 2 picture frames. One was from the day the department was officially launched, a photo of Julian clipping my ID badge onto my shirt. The other was from last week, a picture of Sarah and me at an amusement park. She was wearing a headband I'd won for her, her smile as bright as the sun. My phone buzzed. A text from Chloe. Don't leave after work. Meet me in the garage at 6. Surprise. A smile spread across my face. Since becoming Mr. Reed, my relationship with Chloe had changed. We were no longer assistant and boss, but equals colleagues, and increasingly close friends. Mr. Reed, the supplier samples are here, my assistant, Matt, said, knocking and entering. He placed a box of new packaging materials on my desk. They're waiting for your feedback. Just Ethan is fine. I corrected him out of habit, opening the box. This new cushioning material is much better than the last batch. We're the environmental specs. Fully compliant, Matt said, handing me the report. The manufacturer said it's all thanks to the alternative you proposed. It was just one of many small changes we'd made. Replacing styrofoam with a biodegradable material had only increased costs by 5%, but it had earned Zenith a reputation as an eco-conscious company. The idea had come from my time as a delivery driver, when I'd wondered why no one had invented a better way to deal with the mountains of plastic waste. There was another knock on the door. This time it was Julian. He was wearing a dark blue sport coat, looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen him. Mr. Croft, Matt said, standing up straight. It's after hours, Matt. You can relax, Julian said with a wave of his hand. He turned to me. Are you ready? I was confused. Ready for what? Chloe didn't tell you, he asked, raising an eyebrow. Dinner tonight. So that was Chloe's surprise. The 4 of us had been getting dinner together regularly for the past 2 months. Julian and Sarah were now officially a couple. And Chloe and I felt for the small velvet box in my pocket, my heart speeding up. I'm meeting Chloe at 6. I said, it's the same dinner, Julian said, a sly look in his eyes. She didn't tell you because she didn't want you to be nervous. Nervous about what? My voice trailed off as I realized what he was implying. Wait, Tonight isn't just dinner, is it? Julian just smiled and clapped me on the shoulder. See you at 6. Before he left, he added, "Oh, and my father wants to know if you can come over this weekend to discuss the new senior living community project." No problem, I said, but my mind was reeling. Over the past 2 months, Arthur Croft had become something of a mentor to me. Last week, he'd even given me a fountain pen as a reward for the department's performance. Matt's eyes were wide. "Ethan, the chairman has never been this supportive of any executive." I just smiled. There were some things I still didn't understand, like the complex emotion in the chairman's eyes when he looked at me, or the strange sense of familiarity I felt the first time I went to their house, or the fact that Julian and I shared so many of the same nervous habits. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Sarah. "Don't forget tonight. We're something nice." I looked down at my casual shirt and jeans and quickly texted Chloe. "Should I be wearing a suit?" She replied instantly. "Just be yourself. P.S. Don't look in your desk drawer." I immediately pulled open my desk drawer. Inside was a beautifully wrapped box with a note attached, "For the man who never knows what to wear. Love, Chloe." Inside was a light blue linen shirt. The price tag made me gasp. It was half a month's salary from my old job, but it was the word love that really made my heart pound. I tried on the shirt. It fit perfectly. At 6 o'clock sharp, I took the elevator to the underground garage. Chloe was already there, wearing a lilac dress that made her look even more beautiful than usual. "The shirt looks good on you," she said, smiling as she walked over to fix my collar. Her light, floral perfume filled my senses. My hand started to tremble. "Thanks for the shirt." And for. The words got stuck in my throat. Chloe laughed. "Why are you so nervous? It's not our first date." Is this a date?" I asked dumbly. "What else would it be?" she said, tilting her head. "Unless Mr. Manager has other plans?" I shook my head vigorously. "No, I'm glad." I felt for the box in my pocket, but didn't have the courage to take it out. Chloe linked her arm through mine. "Come on, they're waiting for us." We drove to the top floor of the Lumina Tower, the same restaurant where Julian had taken me 2 months ago. We were led to a private room where Julian and Sarah were already waiting, a bottle of champagne on the table. "Finally," Sarah said, jumping up to hug me. "You look great tonight, Ethan." Julian stood up and we shook hands. His eyes moved between me and Chloe, and a smirk played on his lips. "Making progress?" "Be quiet," Chloe said, blushing as she pulled me into a seat. Dinner was wonderful. Julian was more relaxed than I'd ever seen him, even telling a few jokes. Sarah told funny stories about the kids at her kindergarten, and Chloe kept putting food on my plate, her movements so natural it felt like we'd been doing this for years. And then my mom found out I'd used all her lipstick on my dolls. Sarah said, finishing a story. She turned to me. "What about you, Ethan? Any funny stories from the orphanage?" The table fell silent. Julian shot Sarah a look, clearly thinking she'd crossed the line. But I didn't mind talking about it anymore. "Actually, I have a lot of good memories," I said with a smile. "There was a woman there, Ms. Peterson, who always looked out for me. She'd sneak me an extra piece of cake on my birthday. And I touched my left shoulder blade. I have this birthmark. When I was a kid, everyone said it looked like a bird, so they called me the Falcon." "A birthmark?" Julian looked up suddenly. "On your left shoulder blade?" "Yeah, why?" He and Chloe exchanged a strange look. Then he just shook his head. "No reason. Just a coincidence." Just then, the waiter brought out a cake. On it, in elegant script, were the words, "Congratulations, Ethan and Chloe." "What is this?" I asked, looking at Chloe. Her cheeks were pink. "Our 2-month anniversary." "You guys remembered," I said, surprised. It had been exactly 2 months since the 4 of us first had dinner together. "There's more," Julian said, handing me a folder. "Take a look at this." I opened it. It was the latest performance report for the market research department. Employee satisfaction was up 32%. Logistics efficiency was up 25%, and the community delivery project now covered 60% of the city. "This is all because of you," Julian said, raising his glass. "To Ethan Reed, the fastest rising star in Zenith's history." "To Ethan," the others echoed. My eyes burned. This recognition meant more to me than any paycheck. Bolstered by the champagne, I finally found my courage and took the velvet box out of my pocket. As they all watched, I got down on one knee. not to propose I wasn't that brave, and opened the box. Chloe, these past 2 months have been the best of my life. I hope you like this. Inside was a pair of pearl earrings. They weren't extravagant, but they had cost me my entire first month's salary. Chloe covered her mouth, her eyes shining. When did you? I asked Sarah for help. I admitted. She said you like pearls. Chloe took off her own earrings and put mine on. They're perfect. Amid the cheers from Julian and Sarah, she leaned in and kissed my cheek. Thank you. Julian cleared his throat loudly. Please, this is a respectable establishment. Oh, be quiet, Chloe shot back. Who was it that sent Sarah 99 roses at the office last week? Sarah blushed and playfully hit Julian's arm. I told you that was too much. Watching them, I couldn't help but laugh. Who would have thought that a crazy identity swap would lead to this? After dinner, when the check came, Julian and I both reached for it at the same time, our hands colliding and rattling the plates, just like the day we first met. I've got it, I insisted. Don't be ridiculous. It's my treat, Julian said, pushing my hand away. You paid last time, and I'm paying this time. We were about to start wrestling for it when Chloe snatched the bill. We're paying, she announced. She and Sarah shared a look to celebrate finding two decent guys. It was a starry night when we left the restaurant. Julian and Sarah said their goodbyes, and I insisted on walking Chloe home. Let's just walk for a bit, she suggested. The weather is perfect. We strolled along the river, the night breeze cool against our skin. Chloe, I finally asked the question that had been bugging me all night. When I mentioned my birthmark, why did you and Julian react like that? Her steps faltered for a second. Do you believe in fate, Ethan? I didn't used to, I said, looking at her face illuminated by the streetlights. But now, it's hard not to. Some coincidences, she said softly, might be more meaningful than we think. I was about to ask her what she meant when she stopped. We're here. I looked up and was stunned. We were standing in front of one of the most luxurious hotels in the city. This is your place. For tonight, she said with a mysterious smile. I booked a suite with a river view. I wanted to watch the sunrise. She paused. Unless you have a problem with that. My heart was about to beat out of my chest. And no problem at all. In the elevator, we held hands, the silence between us more profound than words. Through the glass walls, the city lights spread out beneath us like a river of stars. I thought back to that ordinary morning 2 months ago when I was on my way to deliver a package, completely unaware that my entire life was about to be turned upside down. What are you thinking about? Chloe asked, her head on my shoulder. About how strange life is, I said, kissing the top of her head, and about how lucky I am. The suite was magnificent, with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the entire city. Chloe opened a bottle of champagne. To a strange and wonderful life, she said, raising her glass. To the fate that brought us together, I said, touching my glass to hers. The champagne went to my head. Chloe's face, in the warm light of the lamp, was breathtaking. I finally summoned the courage to ask the question that had been nagging at me. Why did you choose me? I was just Sure, she said, her finger on my lips. You're not just anything. You're Ethan Reed, the man who tastes marble to see if it's real. The man who speaks truth to power. The man who stands up for a stranger. She took a step closer. The man who, like me, believes that who a person is has nothing to do with their job title. I looked into her eyes and suddenly understood why we fit together so perfectly. Because from the very beginning, she had seen the real me. Not the delivery boy, not the CEO, just Ethan Reed. I pulled her into an embrace. Outside the window, the city lights began to dim, but my world had never been brighter. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight streamed through the curtains, I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Chloe. On the nightstand were our champagne glasses from the night before and the pearl earrings she had taken off. One of them had rolled onto the floor. I bent down to pick it up, but my eyes were drawn to something else under the nightstand. It was a folded piece of paper that had fallen out of a folder. Curious, I picked it up and unfolded it. It was a copy of a medical report. The title read, DNA Paternity Test Results. I was about to fold it back up. It was obviously private, when my eyes caught two familiar names, Arthur Croft, father, and Ethan Reed, son, probability of paternity, 99.9999%. The paper slipped from my fingers. My ears were ringing. All the pieces suddenly clicked into place. The chairman's strange behavior, Julian's reaction to my birthmark, that sense of uncanny familiarity. You saw it. Chloe's voice came from behind me. I turned. She was sitting up in bed, her expression a mixture of pity and concern. What? What does this mean? I stammered. Julian found out 2 weeks ago, she said softly. Your blood sample from your physical. He had it tested against his father's. So he's my... I couldn't finish the insane thought. Brother, Chloe said, nodding. Half-brother. Your mothers were best friends. They gave birth on the same day, at the same hospital. But there was a fire that year. In the chaos, the two of you were switched. My legs gave out, and I sank onto the edge of the bed. So Julian didn't just look like me. We were actually related? And the chairman's kindness wasn't just professional approval. It was paternal love. He was going to tell you today, Chloe explained. Last night's dinner was supposed to be the prelude. And him? Does he know? He's known for a week longer than you have, Chloe said, kneeling in front of me and taking my hands. He had a hard time accepting that he wasn't the real Julian Croft, but he said that. What's more important than blood is the strange and wonderful bond you two have formed. My mind flashed through the events of the past 2 months. Julian's journey from arrogance to genuine friendship, the chairman's transformation from stern boss to loving father, Chloe's quiet, constant support. It all made sense now. I need to see him, I said, getting to my feet. Now. An hour later, I stood in front of the Croft family mansion, my heart pounding. Before I could ring the bell, the door opened. Julian stood there, dark circles under his eyes, as if he hadn't slept all night. Come in, he said, stepping aside. My father is waiting for you. In the living room, Arthur Croft sat in an armchair, looking older than I had ever seen him. He gestured for me to sit. Your mother's name was Elizabeth Reed, he began. She was my college sweetheart. Her marriage was unhappy. She raised you on her own. My wife was also pregnant at the time. We promised we would raise our children together. His voice was hoarse. The day you were born, there was a fire. In the chaos, the two of you were switched. By the time we realized, I couldn't breathe. My entire 28 years of life had been upended. Why are you only telling me now? I asked. At first, it was just a suspicion, the chairman said with a sad smile. You and Julian are so much alike, and not just in looks. But the more I got to know you, the more certain I became. The DNA test was just the final confirmation. And my mother, she passed away 5 years ago, he said, handing me an envelope. She left this for you. I've been keeping it safe all this time. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a faded photograph and a letter. The photo was of 2 young women, each holding a baby, their faces radiant. The letter was short. It said that she had been forced to give me up, but that she would always love me. I am so sorry, the chairman said, his eyes filled with tears. If only I had found out sooner. Julian came over and put a hand on my shoulder. Believe it or not, I'm glad this happened. He looked more vulnerable than I had ever seen him. It gave me a chance to get to know my brother. I looked at the man in front of me, once so arrogant, now so sincere, and I finally understood the inexplicable connection between us. It was blood. It was family. So, I tried to joke. Our identity swap was fated. Or maybe it was just our instincts, Julian said with a smile. Arthur Croft stood up, and for the first time, he hugged me. Welcome home, son. In that embrace, I felt 28 years of guilt, regret, and the joy of a father who had finally found his lost son. I closed my eyes, feeling the warmth of family for the first time in my life. Outside, the sun had fully risen, illuminating a small world that had been broken and was now, finally, whole again. I had been a lost delivery boy, an imposter CEO, a department manager. But now I had finally found my true identity. I am Ethan Reed. I am a son of the Croft family. I am Chloe's partner. I am myself. My life had no limits. My destiny was my own to write. End.